In my past life, I was the infamous campus belle, yet I fell in love with the aloof school heartthrob, the top student, the female lead, also had a crush on him. Fearing I would distract him from his exams, she intercepted my note asking to meet, leaving me waiting alone until I was killed in a car accident 8 years later. He learned the truth, had a mental breakdown, and took his own life along with hers. Reborn in this life, the female lead is determined not to stand in the way of our love anymore. She wants to see with her own eyes how the male lead and I live a life worse than dogs. One after school, just like in my past life, I passed the note to my deskmate, Latinglan. I clasped my hands together and looked at her with a pious gaze. You absolutely must give this to Seongdong. It's super important. Please, my dear Lanlan. Latinglan shot me a glance, a flicker of disdain flashing in her eyes. I love using reduplicatives and interjections, and my voice has a naturally sweet, coquettish tone. Based on this, she concluded I was being affected and artificial, a total green tea girl. In my past life, I idolized her and treated her every word as gospel. She said my speech was affected, so I desperately lowered my voice, speaking like a duck. But in this life, her halo effect on me has long since vanished. I still speak in my own habitual way and waited patiently for her reply. Just like in her past life, she politely took the note and said softly, okay. She and Seongdong are neighbors, so I would ask her to pass the note. The college entrance exam is tomorrow, and I'm feeling unsure. I want to see Seongdong. Perhaps a hug and a kiss from my lover could ease my pre-exam nerves. But Latinglan didn't believe it. She always thought I was a scheming girl trying to seduce Seongdong and would drag him down with me. So, in our past life, she carelessly tossed my note away and, when she met Seongdong at home, never mentioned a word about it. But this time, having been reborn, she will hand the note to Seongdong. It wasn't because of my request, but because of the hatred in her heart too. In my past life, I didn't know that Latinglan hated me. She was lovely in appearance, had excellent grades, and was considerate and polite to everyone. As the class's youth league branch secretary, she was well liked by both teachers and classmates. She is also my idol. When the teacher assigned her to be my deskmate, I was incredibly flattered. I carefully put away my compact mirror, extracurricular books, and anything else unrelated to class. I didn't wear makeup, didn't listen to my MP3 player, and maintained a rigid, upright posture. I was terrified of doing anything that might disturb her concentration in class. She was so perfect, so brilliant. Someone as insignificant as me felt honored just to sit beside her, as if I were basking in a bit of her academic glory. Bathed in that divine light, I looked at her with pure happiness and couldn't stand anyone speaking ill of her. When I proudly announced at home that my new deskmate was the top-ranked girl in the humanities class, my good-for-nothing father, as usual, sneered and started spewing filth. Being a straight-A student is no match for having big boobs. Doing well in school isn't as good as marrying well. I saw red instantly, grabbed a stool, and got into a fight with him. By the time the neighbors, with practiced ease, called the police and the community officers, also with practiced ease, showed up at the door, I had already taken several kicks from him, but he didn't get off scot-free either. The stool hit him square in the back, tearing a bloody gash in his t-shirt. That's the price he paid for insulting my goddess right in front of me. I was the unofficial campus belle, a title that came with a never-ending stream of slanderous rumors. As the class secretary, Latinglan would speak up to stop our classmates whenever they spread those vile rumors. That was when I felt the most grateful for her and admired her the most. I revered her as my goddess. It was only later that I realized Latinglan looked down on me just like everyone else. She simply valued her own dignity too much to spread that vulgar, petty gossip. Seongdong and I started dating young, yet Latinglan never thought Seongdong, a hot-blooded young man, was at fault. She was convinced it was me, the seductress, the scheming little minx, who had used cheap, underhanded tricks to lure in that aloof, untouchable flower on the high peak. So, in her eyes, the little flirtatious moments between me and Seongdong were nothing but my calculated, shameless attempts to seduce him. And Jia deliberately turned her head, letting her crimson lips brush lightly against Seongdong's cheek. His earlobes flushed instantly, and he turned back to look at her, utterly flustered. She just blinked, feigning innocence, and said, "Oops, that wasn't on purpose, sorry." And Jia gave a lazy, fox-like smile, her large eyes glimmering. Seongdong was just a naive high school student. He had never encountered such a captivating blend of innocence and allure. Naturally, his mind was thrown into disarray. He was ready to bow at her feet, to fall from grace for her. He would agree to anything she said. And Jia always kept a bottle of artificial tears in her pencil case, dabbing a few drops from time to time. Her large eyes, glistening with moisture, made her appear all the more pitiful and delicate. Seongdong, a typical straight guy, had no clue about such manipulative tactics. Naturally, he assumed his beloved girlfriend had been wronged, so he put down his books and went to great lengths to cheer her up with her elegant and lively prose. She conveyed the same sentiment as my scumbag, trash-talking father and those classmates who spread malicious rumors. So, when she calmly withheld my note without batting an eye, she felt not a shred of guilt, the sheer sense of accomplishment from rescuing the unattainable flower even in her past life. When she learned of my tragic fate, she dismissed it as mere coincidence or bad luck, and deep down, she firmly believed it was exactly what I deserved. I, and Jia, the infamous campus belle with terrible grades, a dysfunctional family, poor and restless, had the audacity to try and drag the ascetic male god down from his pedestal. I got exactly what was coming to me. Meanwhile, Lu Tinglan stood pure and white, perched upon the high ground of morality. 3. Lu Tinglan passed a note to Xiongdong. On that fateful night in our past life that separated us forever, I saw the boy waiting under the street lamp as promised, running towards me. He was running a bit too fast. When he stopped, a flush spread across his fair skin, beads of sweat clung to his short hair, and his dark eyes looked as if they were soaked, glistening, and wet. He held up an ice cream box, looking at me with a smile in his eyes. Sea salt chocolate, my favorite flavor. Xiongdong was handsome, with fair skin, a straight nose, and deep-set, expressive eyes. A bit slow on the uptake in social situations, she often regarded others with a touch of innocent bewilderment. My schoolmates jokingly called her the unattainable flower on the high peak. Lu Tinglan was the perennial top student in the liberal arts class, while Xiongdong was the undisputed, runaway #1 in the sciences. Both of their parents were university professors, living on the same floor, right across the hall from each other. From any angle, they seemed like a match made in heaven. But the one Xiongdong liked was me. I joked with Xiongdong that we were born in the wrong era 20 years ago. A union like ours, a Cinderella and her Prince Charming, was the staple of romance novels. But the tide has turned. Now it's all about matching social status. With my humble origins, I'm only fit to play the villainess. Xiongdong held the ice cream, scooped out the last spoonful with a small spoon, and fed it into my mouth. He didn't speak, just smiled with pursed lips. In his dark, bright pupils was a radiantly beautiful girl, pouting and acting coquettishly at him. He's usually a man of few words, while I'm the one who chatters away. I've grown accustomed to his silence. He doesn't need to speak, just looking at me intently is enough to satisfy me. With the ice cream in my mouth, I blinked and was about to kiss him when he suddenly grabbed my hand and pressed it firmly against his t-shirt, over the left side of his chest. Thump, thump through the smooth, cool fabric. The powerful, steady rhythm of a man's heartbeat pulsed against my palm. He held my hand in place, refusing to let me pull away. I looked up, and he gazed down at me. He whispered softly, "You will always be my leading lady, Anjia." I blinked, then playfully punched his arm with a laugh. "That's such a cheesy line, you have to try again." His handsome, sword-like eyebrows furrowed in deep concentration. It seemed my question was giving him more trouble than the hardest math problem on an exam. Before he could say another word, I leaned in and silenced him with a kiss. "Silly Xiongdong, how could I ever dislike your sweet words? How could I bear to make things difficult for you?" The kiss was lingering and intense, lasting until the very last breath of air was spent in our lungs. Gasping for air, I nestled against his chest, listening to the frantic heartbeat echoing through his entire ribcage, and whispered, "The college entrance exam is tomorrow, Xiongdong. Remember our promise." I won't forget." His lips hovered above my head, his warm breath making my scalp tingle. Smiling, I let him lead me as we walked through the park on a summer night. Lu Tinglan knew that Xiongdong and I had a pact about the college entrance exam, but she didn't know the specifics. She guessed that I must have asked Xiongdong to accommodate me by deliberately scoring lower on the exam. Someone who was supposed to get into a top-tier university ended up underperforming and went to a vocational college. With me, what I heard her theory, I was so shocked I was left speechless. Is this the academic genius I used to look up to and envy? How does such a bizarre train of thought not interfere with her studies? In her mind, is the guy she's been pining over for years really that dim-witted and devoid of free will, just a lump of clay to be molded at will? Or have I mastered some kind of bizarre curse that can drastically and selectively lower someone's intelligence? The agreement between Xiongdong and me was actually quite simple. He would apply for the civil engineering department at a top domestic university, while I would try my best to get into a second-tier university's French department in the same city. The reason we kept it a secret from others was that Xiongdong's family wouldn't allow him to major in civil engineering. His parents insisted he study medicine, with the expectation that he would one day become a respected department head at a top-tier hospital driven by both a sense of justice and her love for Seong-dong. Latinglan decided to conceal my note, preventing me from further influencing his decision. That decision ultimately led to a tragedy for all three of us. I hope this time, it's not too late to set things right. At 8:30, Seong-dong saw me home. When I got back, my dad, to my surprise, wasn't drunk and didn't yell at me. He was just lounging in the living room watching a soccer game. When he saw me come in, he just grunted, "Where have you been?" "Get to bed. I've got things to do tomorrow." "So you're on your own getting to the exam hall?" Not that I was counting on him to take me anyway. I shrugged and went back to my room. As I changed into my pajamas, I looked at myself in the mirror. I am alive. Every inch of my skin is soft. Every smile is bright. Each breath makes my chest rise and fall. And every word I speak vibrates the air. All of it, every single thing, is a testament to being alive. I am not dead. I have not become a ghost, left powerless to watch everything crumble into an irreparable end. I clenched my fist. This time, I will walk into the Gaokao examination hall alongside my peers. This time, perhaps I truly can, hand in hand with Seong-dong, run towards the tomorrow of our dreams. For the final bell marking the end of the last exam rang out, I put down my pen, my arm aching from the long, tense hours of writing outside the examination hall. Parents were everywhere, braving the scorching sun, clutching drinks, and eagerly looking out for their children. The examinees either huddled together, anxiously comparing answers, or departed like heroes, surrounded by their proud parents. The first person I saw was Latinglan. She was different from the excited examinees around her. In the past, I would have looked at her with starry-eyed admiration for her calm and composed aura, seeing it as the mark of a top student. But now I know she was just reliving her past life's experiences. Latinglan walked straight towards me, and "Jia, how did the exam go?" she asked me. She rarely deigned to speak to me first in the past. Perhaps she wanted to test her theory. "Not bad," I said matter-of-factly. "I think I have a shot at getting into a second-tier university." I didn't ask her how she did with feigned concern. In our past life, she got into a top-tier university, having a second chance now. Her results could only be better. Latinglan, Seong-dong, and I were all in the same exam hall. While we were talking, Seong-dong squeezed through the crowd, holding 2 bottles of iced black tea, and strode over to us. He handed one to me, hesitated for a moment, and asked Latinglan, "Would you like some water?" Latinglan shook her head, politely declined, and then asked, "How did you do on the exam?" In the way she looked at Seong-dong, I caught a fleeting glimpse of contempt and hatred. She desperately wanted to see Seong-dong come to grief. This thought sent a chill down my spine, a bone-deep coldness. Seong-dong didn't notice her odd behavior. He was always slow to pick up on other people's emotions. "Not bad." The answer took Latinglan by surprise, and she instinctively pressed further. "You didn't underperform." Seong-dong was taken aback for a moment. "No." Latinglan was stunned for a second, shook her head, gave me a deep look, and turned to leave. Seong-dong looked puzzled, turning back to me. "What's wrong with her?" I took a sip of my drink and shot him a playful, reproachful glance. "Why are you asking me about your childhood sweetheart? Shouldn't you know what's going on with her?" Seong-dong shook his head and said earnestly, "She's not my childhood sweetheart, but she's your goddess. I thought you'd understand your own goddess." I let out a soft laugh and said slowly, "She's not my goddess anymore, not anymore." Hand in hand, we walked out of the exam hall, laughing and joking. A TV station was covering the college entrance exam. The camera was focused on the exam hall's entrance, where a reporter with a microphone was interviewing a girl on camera. It was Latinglan. Seong-dong and I instinctively let go of each other's hands, but the camera had already mercilessly panned over us. That night on the local news, Seong-dong and I became the center of attention. Handsome guy and beautiful girl take the college entrance exam together. The whole world knows you two are dating. Ah, I envy that pure, innocent campus romance. I stared at the screen, a chill running through my heart. So, this was another thing Latinglan changed after her rebirth. In a clever way, she exposed my relationship with Seong-dong for all to see. In her past life, she didn't want Seong-dong to hate her, so she never told his parents about our relationship. In this life, of course, she has no intention of keeping our secret anymore. However, true to her character, she now wants nothing to do with Seong-dong, so she would never go and tell them herself. That's why this whole TV show stunt was necessary. By volunteering for the interview, she made sure the cameras were pointed right where we were leaving. It would expose my relationship with Seong-dong while keeping her safely out of the whole affair. The sound of a key turning in the lock. My dad was home. I was about to head back to my room when my dad stormed in 2 strides. He was across the floor, grabbing my arm and yanking me toward the living room with brute force, cursing under his breath the whole time. "You're still so young. And you're already out here chasing men just like your mother. Huh, who the hell is that boy you were with, too young to know any better, and he's already trying to pick up girls, and he picks my daughter. Did you let him fuck you? Listen here, you little slut, you're still my daughter, no matter how cheap you are. If he dared lay a finger on you, I'll crush his goddamn balls." I let out a sharp cry, but he ignored it completely. He threw me onto the sofa, hunched over, and jabbed a finger in my face as he screamed, "You better fucking remember this, be a good girl, don't you dare spread your legs for just any man. I'd rather cut you up and feed you to the dogs than let you shame me like your mother did." He was an uneducated brute, skilled at throwing punches but lacking creativity with insults. Quickly running out of things to say, he paused to catch his breath, eyes bulging as he racked his brain for new curses. Seizing the moment, I propped myself up halfway, grabbed a bottle from the table, and smashed it right against his forehead. Recoiling in pain, he jumped aside. I sprang up from the sofa, turned, and dashed into the room, locking the door behind me in one swift motion. A noise came from outside. He paced back and forth, opened a drawer, probably rummaging for an alcohol swab. In our household, this was a more essential everyday item than cooking oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, or even tea. Soon, he started applying the medicine, hissing through his teeth and muttering curses. "Bitch, little slut." After a while, I suddenly heard him talking to himself with a tone of smug satisfaction. "Heh, ruthless hands, and a cold heart, that's my blood, not like her shameless, promiscuous mother. A true chip off the old block." I leaned against the back of the door, sliding down to the floor, and buried my face in my hands. "See, this is my messed up family, my terrible birth parents, so it's no surprise at all that Lettinglin looks down on me. I don't even really blame her, I'm just baffled. She keeps professing her love for Seongdong, yet in her past life she treated him like an untouchable, lofty ideal, and in this life she sees him as nothing but dirt and trash, finding even a glance at him repulsive. But from start to finish, has she ever truly tried to understand this man? Does she know what kind of person he is, why he's so quiet and reserved, or why he's so socially anxious? 5. Because of what happened between me and Seongdong, my dad and I got into a fight. He doesn't have a personal cell phone, and I don't dare go to his house to look for him. All I can do is wait anxiously, lying in bed, clutching my phone. I watched my classmates post photos of various gatherings in the class group chat. Some were at karaoke, others were eating and drinking, and a few had already kicked off their summer vacation party trips. No one has contacted me. In everyone's eyes, I'm the daughter of a thug, a little delinquent myself. My father killed someone in a gang fight and served time in prison. My mother was a bad woman. She ran off with another man when I was one, leaving me with my elderly grandmother. My grandmother is a low-income urban resident on government assistance, eking out a meager living by running a fruit stall at the alley's entrance. She couldn't bear to stock expensive fruit, so her stall was mostly filled with wrinkled, shriveled, and substandard produce. I sometimes suspect that while my grandmother appeared to be selling fruit, she was really selling a story of hardship. Fortunately, the world is still full of kind-hearted and well-meaning souls. On those cold winter nights, the dim, warm glow of Grandma's lamp would always attract hurried city office workers. Out of a small act of kindness, they would buy her fruit. Through heartbreakingly careful planning and sheer, relentless hard work from dawn till dusk, Grandma raised me until I was 12, then placed me in the hands of my father, who had just been released on reduced sentence. Her last words before passing were, "Be good to our little girl." Grandma may not have been a paragon of virtue in the conventional sense. Her little fruit stall carried a hint of emotional pressure, but to me, she was the best grandmother in the world. Whenever a kind soul bought her fruit, Grandma's face would light up like a sunflower, and she'd tell me with pure delight, "You see, there are still plenty of good people in this world." That was my first, fundamental understanding of life. I must be a good person. That's how to make Grandma happy and earn her affection. But my classmates didn't know any of this. In their eyes, I was the pretty girl with bad grades and a sickly sweet voice, the very picture of a troublemaker. The rumor was that I was a gang leader, swaggering around with my crew, dragging anyone who crossed me into the bathroom for a beating. And behind me, they said, were the legendary gang bosses who had my back. Of course, the juiciest part of the whole story was how I supposedly traded my body, cozying up to those bosses to squeeze money out of them. So, what's the real story? It's pretty pathetic. As the so-called legendary bad girl and academic failure, I spent almost all my free time glued to my keyboard. The main reason my grades are so poor is that I'm terrified of my teachers. I instinctively shut down and refused to listen to them. I was afraid of all of them, the male teacher who stripped me, and the female homeroom teacher who looked at me with disgust and called me a slut. Even after I transferred to a better school with better teachers, a deep-seated hatred made me unwilling to listen in class or acknowledge them as my teachers. I always suspected that their true, hideous nature would eventually be revealed: ugly, flabby, greasy, obese, and grotesque. However, I wrote exceptionally good essays, the kind that teachers from the top-tier classes would often request to use as model examples. The reason I was placed in the humanities advanced class in high school was also because my Chinese teacher recognized the talent in my writing. I'd even managed to make money from my writing on a certain website. A classmate who went on a cruise posted the price list. Out of boredom, I did the math and realized my writing income could cover the expenses for 2 people. After scrolling for a while and hearing nothing from outside the window, I quietly put down my phone and got ready for bed. Just then, I heard 3 taps on the window, light, rhythmic. It was Xiongdong. My home was on the 2nd floor of a state-owned factory dormitory complex, a building from the 1970s or 80s, shabby on the outside, decaying within. The only redeeming feature was the large tree outside the balcony, with its massive trunk and numerous branches, making it very climber-friendly. Spotting Xiongdong through the window, my heart sank. His face was pale, and his gaze seemed vacant. After I opened the door, he walked in, wordlessly pulled me into a tight embrace, and buried his head in the crook of my neck. I reached out and gently stroked the stubbly back of his head. Moments later, the sound of his choked, halting sobs reached my ears. 6. Every time Xiongdong cried, it felt like a downpour in my heart, a relentless deluge that drenched the very landscape of my soul. I can't cry. One of the reasons my mother abandoned me was that I was born unable to shed tears. She said I looked like a cold-hearted, short-lived wretch who wouldn't be worth raising. In high school, I earned my first writing fee and secretly went to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor told me I was born with underdeveloped tear glands and would need to use artificial tears to relieve my dry eye symptoms. So, the artificial tears in my pencil case really aren't some kind of manipulative prop. If only Lettingland would stoop to ask me, I'd tell her, but she doesn't see the need to have a real conversation with me. Unlike me, Xiongdong is actually quite the crybaby. My first encounter with him was in the school gym after classes. I stumbled upon him sitting in a corner, face buried in his hands, weeping silently, just as I would with anyone I saw crying. I walked over and offered him a pack of tissues. He waved a hand, not bothering to look up to see who it was, and told me in a hoarse voice to go away. I quietly sat down nearby, in a dark, unlit corner, sitting on the floor just like him. I hugged my knees and watched him in silence. His shoulders gave occasional, slight, and abrupt twitches, while his abdomen rose and fell rapidly, like a frog's. His breathing was fast and shallow, as if each gasp was forced from his throat before it could even reach his lungs. What would it feel like to have a good, hard cry? Exhausted from crying, he lowered his hands, his reddened eyes sweeping blankly over the stadium in the twilight. He was startled to see me and stammered in surprise, why are you still here? I stood up and brushed myself off. I'm leaving right now. Thank you, classmate. He frowned, probably annoyed, but his curiosity was piqued by my words. Thank me? For what? Thanks for crying for me, I said with a smile. I was born unable to cry. Do you know how awful that feels? Watching you cry felt like I was crying myself, a deep, cathartic release. After that, Xiongdong and I gradually grew closer. He told me his secret. In the eyes of others, Xiongdong, a child of fortune, had a pair of dazzlingly perfect parents. They were both US-educated PhDs, professors, witty in conversation, and impeccably polite. No one knew that this couple, though seemingly harmonious, were actually estranged, finding surprising common ground only in their approach to raising their son simply and effectively. From childhood onward, everything Xiongdong did had to meet his parents' standards of efficiency. After every meal, the dishes had to be placed in their designated spot, the bowls had to be as clean as if they'd been rinsed, and no rice could be left on the chopsticks. Unlicked dishes meant extra trouble when washing up. He was only allowed 1 piece of fruit a day, no more, for fear of an upset stomach, and no less, because a lack of vitamins would make him sick. No snacks are allowed, of any kind, to avoid getting sick or having an upset stomach. Getting sick means trouble. In short, all of Xiongdong's human activities are premised on not creating any extra burden for his parents. As a young man on the cusp of adulthood, Xiongdong's room is not allowed to be locked, and he doesn't even have a phone of his own. To present themselves as civilized people, his parents specifically bought the latest model iPhone and placed it on the living room dining table, declaring it the family's communal phone. Xiongdong was allowed to use it, but forbidden from changing the password. So, what would be the consequence for disobeying his parents' orders? His parents were highly educated intellectuals, so of course they wouldn't resort to the kind of foul-mouthed, violent behavior my own scumbag father did. However, their home contained a specially designed blackout room, constructed with special soundproofing and light-blocking materials. Once the lights were turned off, all external sound and light ceased to exist. His parents considered it a more civilized form of punishment. Every time Seong-dong mentioned that little dark room, his whole body would tremble. His earliest memory of that little dark room was from when he was 5 years old, on his way home from school. When he ran into his father's graduate student, that cheerful older brother bought him an ice cream and later casually mentioned the little incident to his father. His father locked him in a dark room for a full day, not only starving him but also forcing him to relieve himself in there, with no permission to leave. How did a 5-year-old boy endure a full, isolated 24 hours, not a minute less, in that absolute darkness, surrounded by his own waste? He must have cried until he lost his voice, must have screamed until his throat was raw, yet the world remained silent, with only his sobs and cries echoing in the void. Eventually, even his cries faded to whimpers. He might have heard the sound of his own urine trickling into his pants, the rush of blood through his veins, and the thudding of his own heart within his chest. Every time I think of what he went through, a chill runs down my spine. In that instant, even my good-for-nothing, foul-mouthed, criminal bastard of a father seemed somewhat endearing. A Seong-dong like that, of course, was not allowed to cry. It was a sign of trouble. It means the adults have to spend time dealing with his emotions, so he could only hide and cry somewhere outside where no one was around. But school isn't safe either. For instance, that day, it could have been me who went into the gym, or it could have been someone else. I told him he could come to my house, to my room, close the door, and cry as much as he needed. I took his hand and led him to see the big tree, pointing to the little balcony where a large wind chime hung. That's my room. Whether my light is on or not, you can always knock on my window, just 3 knocks, and I'll know it's you. I'll open the door for you. It was the summer after our sophomore year when Seong-dong came to my house for the first time. This was after the class placement exams. He had been running a fever during the test, so he wasn't at his best, and his rank dropped to 5th in the grade. He was sentenced to 2 days in solitary confinement. When Seong-dong came to my house, he was like a ghost. His short hair was messy and dirty, his face was unshaven, and his eyes were vacant. What worried me most was the thick bandage on his arm. He tried to take his own life just before losing consciousness. He remembered me, and the promise we made to each other. Once we graduate from university, we can go far away, somewhere the adults can never find us. In that moment, my voice was like a heavenly melody, calling him back from the brink. He fumbled in the drawer for the gauze, stopped the bleeding, and applied the medicine. Then he sat back down at the desk and quietly worked on practice problems. His parents saw the wound on his wrist but chose to look the other way, asking nothing and saying nothing. It was as if they feared that opening their mouths would invite endless trouble. After dinner, he neatly put his bowl back in its designated spot, said he was going to a classmate's to study, and walked out the door. He followed my directions and came to my house. As he wept, his sobs coming in ragged gasps, I didn't know how to comfort him. Then, as if moved by some unseen force, I kissed him on the lips. That was the kiss that sealed our love. So, in a way, I was the one who initiated things between Seong-dong and me. Perhaps this is one of the pieces of evidence that Lu Tinglan uses to label me as shameless. 7. In my past life, Seong-dong didn't learn of my death until after the college entrance exams were over. I don't know how it happened, but after I died, my soul didn't dissipate. Instead, it drifted aimlessly, always hovering around him and Lu Tinglan. He ran to my house like a madman, just as my father was in my room sorting through the belongings of the deceased. My father beat him, leaving him bloodied and bruised. He didn't fight back, didn't even raise his arms to shield himself. He just stood there, resigned to the abuse, his voice hoarse as he pleaded, "Uncle, please, please give Anja back to me. Please give her back. I'm begging you." My father knocked out several of his teeth, his face swollen and his speech slurred. Yet he remained oblivious, repeating his plea over and over. "Please, hoo-hoo, I'm begging you, give me the letter." It was only when Lu Tinglan rushed to our house and threatened to call the police that my father finally stopped and drove them out. Lu Tinglan stayed with him, sitting in silence downstairs until dawn the next day. She was also the one who answered the call from Seong-dong's parents, telling them he was helping her with a project and would be pulling an all-nighter. To outsiders, Seong-dong's parents have always seemed kind and amiable, so naturally, they wouldn't say anything. It was Lu Tinglan who stayed by Seong-dong's side and helped him endure those dark, hopeless days time and again. She was the one who discovered his suicide attempts. She was the one who found ways to get him to eat, forced him to walk, and compelled him to speak even after the college entrance exam results came out. It was she who consulted with Seong-dong's parents and filled out his university applications for him. He didn't study medicine because his mental state wasn't suitable, so he switched to a computer science program at another university. It was in the same city as the university she attended over 4 years. She gradually found her way into his heart after graduation. They both stayed and worked in that city. After his career stabilized, Seong-dong proposed to her. Seong-dong didn't want a wedding. He dreaded the thought of seeing his parents, whom he had avoided for 4 years, at the ceremony, but Lu Tinglan insisted, persuading him relentlessly. She needed a grand wedding to put a perfect, final punctuation mark on her years of bittersweet, unrequited love. Seong-dong gave in to her wish. At the wedding, however, he was so stiff and awkward in front of his parents that he walked out of step, prompting the MC to joke that he was too happy to walk properly. After they got married, she kept complaining that Seong-dong was cold and distant with her, nothing like the warmth he had shown me back in the day. I find it strange. Wasn't it precisely that aloof, reserved style of his that she was drawn to back then? Why doesn't she like it anymore? She had also seen another side of Seong-dong that day. Seong-dong took a call from his father, who criticized him over the phone for being a failure. He hadn't been promoted after all these years at the company, had no impressive achievements to speak of, and even if he wanted to change jobs, no headhunters were interested. Even through the phone line, his body wouldn't stop trembling. After hanging up, he squatted down like a child, covering his face as tears streamed through his fingers. Lu Tinglan came out and saw him, gasping in shock. The words escaped her lips. "Why are you sitting here crying? Are you even a man?" Although she immediately apologized for her words, very sincerely, and apologized again that evening, and the next day as well. But I knew that for the entire day, Seong-dong's body never stopped shaking. I recognized this version of him. It was him fighting with every fiber of his being to hold back the urge to weep. It was his soul, locked in a struggle against his own body. His soul was wailing, yet his body refused to shed so much as a single tear. From that moment on, he truly never cried again. Years after my death, my condition of being unable to cry was transferred to him. Then, in the 8th year of their marriage, Lu Tinglan kept insisting on trying for a baby. But Seong-dong told her he had no interest in children and that they could be a dink couple. If Lu Tinglan lacked confidence in their future, he could get a vasectomy, the irreversible kind. But Lu Tinglan was unwilling. She loved children and wanted at least 2 of Seong-dong's. They argued over the matter. Frustrated, Lu Tinglan went to the study and stumbled upon a long-forgotten iron box. She pulled it out from the very back of the drawer. Even before opening the box, she had already guessed what was inside. She was right. It held all the memories between Seong-dong and me. Notes filled with silly sweet nothings we wrote each other, movie tickets from films we watched together, a bubble tea receipt with a heart drawn on it, a list of books we planned to read, and an unfamiliar phone number. Lu Tinglan didn't know whose number it was, so she set it aside. Yet I just stood there, dazed, my entire soul beginning to burn with a sour, searing heat. I remember that number. It was during the winter break of our 2nd year in high school. He was passing by the entrance of our neighborhood with his parents. The desire to see me overwhelmed everything, yet he couldn't get away. So, this socially anxious guy actually mustered the courage to ask a passing auntie to borrow her phone. The first words from that unknown number were a low, nasal sob. "Anja, I miss you so much." Lu Tinglan flipped to the end and found a single sheet of paper. She clutched it, her hands beginning to tremble. It was the life list Seong-dong and I had made together. "Let's get into college together. Let's go abroad together. Let's take a cruise around the world together. Let's have a child." The final wish shattered her completely. Seong-dong returned just in time to witness the scene. He stood at the doorway, lost in a daze for a long while, even forgetting to comfort the disheveled and weeping Lu Tinglan. Truth be told, he hadn't taken that box out in a very long time. Ever since they got married, Seong-dong had forbidden himself from revisiting the memories of the past. If Lu Tinglan had been calm enough, she should have noticed the dust that had settled on the box. If Seong-dong had been willing, it would have been easy to clear up this misunderstanding. Yet, neither of them spoke a word. Tinglan Lu is a well-mannered person who pays great attention to her poise. Quickly, she dried her tears, stood up, and said as calmly as she could, "Your parents are here. Let's go pick them up from the airport." Dong Seong's body reflexively stiffened for a moment, but looking at Tinglan's tear-reddened eyes, he nodded silently. Dong's parents were invited by Tinglan. She hoped they could persuade him in person about having a child on the way to the airport. I don't know what came over her, but Lu Tinglan started talking about me, that forbidden name, sealed away for nearly 8 years, slipped from her lips like a ghost, you know, the night before the college entrance exam, and Jia wanted to ask you out, but I didn't want her to affect your exam, so I never gave you the note. I wanted to lunge over and cover her mouth. I wanted to shut Xiangdong's ears, but I had no physical form. I couldn't change a thing. I could only watch helplessly as Xiangdong, who had been focused on driving, slowly, inch by inch, turned his head toward me. Like a psychiatric patient whose brain had ceased to function, he asked her with an eerily innocent tone, "What did you say?" I didn't catch that. Lu Tinglan was already screaming in terror. "Watch the road, Xiangdong. Focus on driving. What are you doing?" Xiangdong persisted, asking her, "What did you just say?" "I told you. I never gave you her note, Xiangdong. It's been 8 years, and Jia is long gone to dust. You need to be reasonable about this." "So that's how it was." Xiangdong nodded, then turned his head in a daze, muttering under his breath. I drifted closer to listen. What he was saying was, "And Jia, oh and Jia, I miss you so much. I miss you so terribly." The next moment, I watched in horror as he calmly spun the steering wheel and slammed on the accelerator. The car carved a bizarre arc across the bridge, smashed through the guardrail, and launched into the air over the river. "No, Xiangdong, don't do this, please, don't. I need you to live. I need you to live a good, long life," I screamed, lunging forward, desperate to lift the car, to push Xiangdong out of the way, to wrench the door open, but I was utterly powerless in the end. I just hung there in midair, trembling uncontrollably, sobbing my heart out. "Xiangdong, I never wanted you to do this. It wouldn't have mattered if you'd married Lu Tinglan. It's okay if you have many children. It's okay if you forget me completely. I just need you to live well, to cry for me, to laugh for me, to feel love and be loved for me, to treat this world kindly for me. That's all I ask." But no matter how loudly I cry, no matter how desperately I scream, still, no one knows. About 10 minutes after the car had completely submerged, the space around me began to ripple and distort. In a flash, Lu Tinglan and I were both transported back to the time before our college entrance exams. I finally understood why I couldn't reincarnate or be reborn, because this is a story. Lu Tinglan is the heroine. In her past life, she saved Xiangdong, only to be repaid with vengeance 8 years later, costing her her life. In this life, the story truly begins. This time, she will not lift a finger to save Xiangdong's fate. She will stand by, a cold observer, watching as Xiangdong and I descend into madness and ruin. 8. This college entrance exam TV program today is the first grand gift she has bestowed upon us since her rebirth. When Xiangdong appeared before me, he looked just as pale and shattered as he had the first time he came to my house back in our second year of high school. The moment I opened the door, he was already holding me in a tight embrace. It was so forceful, so desperate, I could even feel a dull ache in my ribs. He let go of me quickly, opened his backpack, and inside were his ID card and student ID. He looked at me and said softly, "My father wants me to break up with you. He told me to get out and lock myself in the dark room, and that I can only come out once I've come to my senses." This time, I didn't give in. I fought with him. Anja. No wonder there were scratches on his face and his lip was bruised. I reached out to stroke him, but he flinched away from the touch with a wince. After a moment, he leaned in again, gently nuzzling the uninjured side of his face against my palm like a stray puppy with nowhere to go. He murmured, "You're a girl, and you dared to fight your own father. I can't let you outdo me." I snorted with laughter. "I'm not your average girl. I'm a total badass." Since Xiangdong couldn't stay at my place long term, we talked it over and decided to just take this chance to go on a trip. I gave my scumbag of a father a brief heads up, just saying I was going out with a female classmate, unfazed by his torrent of abuse. I calmly packed my bags and walked out the door. He chased me out the door and shoved a card into my pants pocket. "Your old man's got money. There's 5,000 on this card. When it's gone, you get your ass back here. Bottom line, if you're short on cash, you come to your father. No funny business. And don't you dare go down the same road as your mother." Before he could spew anything even more vile, I grabbed my suitcase and bolted out of the dormitory courtyard. And so, unlike in my past life, after the college entrance exams, Xiangdong was practically thrown out of the house. Lu Tinglan gave me a call. She very politely asked if I knew where Xiangdong was. As she spoke, she deliberately feigned indifference to mask the underlying schadenfreude in her words. "It's not that I'm worried about him, but we are neighbors after all, and my parents are concerned too. You know how badly he fell out with his family because of you. Uncle and Aunt Xiang only have him, their one son. Xiangdong has always been their pride and joy. For him to suddenly start dating a girlfriend behind their backs, and with your family's particular circumstances, it's only natural the old folks would have a hard time accepting it right away. I poked Xiaodong away with a finger as he was nibbling on my neck and answered with complete seriousness. Xiaodong is really heartbroken and full of guilt right now. He wants to go back, but he's terrified his parents won't forgive him. Besides, he has a responsibility to me, doesn't he? I'm certainly not letting him go back anytime soon. Xiang Dong grunted, rolling off of me and sitting up. His jet black eyes, like polished obsidian, were filled with confusion and glared at me with clear annoyance. There's just no way to explain it to him. The whole point of Lu Tinglan's rebirth was to witness his downfall and desperation, and to see me sink into depravity, transforming from a harmless green tea into a full-blown bitch. Lu Tinglan was evidently very pleased with my answer. Her voice was so light and breezy it bordered on insincere. We old neighbors will talk to his parents for him, so tell him not to worry. Once he comes to his senses, he should hurry back and apologize. She didn't try to persuade me, probably thinking it wasn't worth the breath on my account, or maybe she hoped I'd drag Xiaodong down with me into even deeper ruin. The college acceptance letters are out, just like in her previous life. Lu Tinglan was accepted into the top university without a doubt. Unlike her previous life, Xiaodong was not in the same city as her. This time, Xiaodong didn't study computer science again. Instead, he chose the university with the best civil engineering program in the country. Many people shook their heads in dismay, believing that with Xiaodong's high scores, choosing this major was a waste of his talent. Lu Tinglan posted on her social media feed, with a picture of a pedigreed dog scrambling for food with a local mutt. The caption read, "Everyone has their own path, no need to worry or interfere." Xiaodong glanced at my phone, completely baffled and unable to make sense of it. I'm the only one who knows what she really meant. She was telling herself to never be so charitable again, to never interfere in the karma of others. Since Xiaodong was content to be a country bumpkin, all she could do was respect his choice and wish him well. The comment section was full of flattery. Our scholarly sister's zen-like insight is truly awe-inspiring, leaving us mere mortals begging for enlightenment. I suppose, in this whole world, I am her only secret confidant. Thinking of it that way, she is rather pitiful. She made a clean getaway, yet no one knows. She escaped the abyss, yet no one celebrates. In this situation, how can one not feel a deep sense of resentment? 9. Xiaodong and I began our university life, a time of blissful companionship outside of my studies. I was still busy writing. The income from my articles was enough to cover my university tuition and accommodation. Xiaodong was stubborn. After his family cut off their support, he gritted his teeth and took a job at a tutoring center. He was the provincial top scorer in physics and specialized in one-on-one tutoring. By the end of the semester, he had not only earned his tuition but also gradually overcome his social anxiety. Throughout our 4 years of university, we supported each other, had each other's backs, and both achieved excellent results in our respective schools and majors. Leading Lan also lived a very fulfilling life. My social feed is filled with nothing but highbrow lectures and friends of every race, black, white, brown. It's truly a circle where only the cultured and accomplished mingle. There's not a single ordinary soul in sight. She would occasionally call me, pretending to casually inquire about how Xiaodong and I were doing. Naturally, I'd pick out the most miserable parts of our lives, embellish them with extra details, and feed them to her. I wanted her to maintain the impression that Jia and Xiaodong were living like dogs, constantly at each other's throats, tearing one another down on a fast track to prison. She was quite pleased. I'm quite pleased as well. After all, she's the female lead. Only when she truly lets go and stops prying into Xiaodong's and my life can I finally feel at ease. In our senior year, Lu Tinglan announced her boyfriend on social media. He was a graduate student in the same major, 2 years ahead of her. I was overjoyed. Xiaodong snatched my phone and said with a tinge of jealousy, "You care about Lu Tinglan too much. Sometimes I really wonder, is it me you like, or her?" I shot him a glare. Guess. His handsome features blurred as a dangerously suggestive smile spread across his face. He pressed his whole body against mine, took my earlobe between his lips, and murmured in a low, husky voice, "I won't guess. I want you to be mine, Anjia, now and forever. I am yours. Forever and always, yours alone, Anjia, Anjia." I won't tell him that the boyfriend leading Lan found bears a slight resemblance to him from the side, but my happiness didn't even last half a year. Leading Lan broke up with her boyfriend. She started calling me again. I was utterly fed up, yet I had to tread carefully in my responses. Xiaodong and I started looking for jobs. It didn't go well. As you know, we've spent the last 4 years constantly bickering and fighting. We had no money, relying entirely on my dad's support, yet he had the audacity to freeload, cheat on me, and still act entitled. So, I didn't hold back either. I got my own revenge by cheating on him. In short, life is a complete mess, my studies are a disaster, I don't even have a certificate. What employer would want us? She wasn't as easily fooled by me as she used to be. After a long silence, she suddenly asked, "Does Seong-dong still love you?" Love? Oh, no, what even is love? When a couple is poor, everything is a struggle. We were from different worlds, with nothing in common, once the initial passion faded. There was no real love left, just a mess of daily frustrations. I come from a humble, ordinary background with a narrow worldview, so I could never truly understand him, and he, with his stuck-up airs, always looked down on me. Ah, the poor have no right to fall in love. She finally hung up the phone. Satisfied, I wiped the sweat from my brow, my heart still fluttering nervously. I'm running out of ideas for this story. Next time she calls, should I tell her that Seong-dong sold me to Myanmar to have my kidneys harvested, or that I sold Seong-dong to Thailand to become a ladyboy? I hurriedly signed the employment contract with Seong-dong. Our goals and direction were set the year we took the college entrance exams. He joined a state-owned enterprise and volunteered for a long-term assignment in Africa. I majored in French and could work as a translator and clerk at Chinese construction sites in Africa. Once we're gone, it'll be a long journey to a distant land. The noble and righteous Miss Lettingland will have a hard time finding us. 10 years later, after our assignment ended, Seong-dong and I settled down in a coastal city. We bought a house with a yard and big trees, using the substantial allowances we'd saved up over the years and the millions I earned in royalties. 2 of my full-length non-fiction novels set in Africa were quite popular, and even physical bookstores were interested. Reaching out to discuss publishing deals, Seong-dong and I found new jobs, and we also managed to get our daughter into a suitable public elementary school. Having grown up in Africa, Joy was an Asian kid tanned as dark as an eel. When she smiled, her teeth were the only thing you could see in her beaming face. You could lose her in a pile of coal and never find her. She's fluent in everyday Chinese, but it all falls apart during exams, especially the classical literature section. I was so mad I chased her around the yard with a feather duster, yelling, "Are you even Chinese? Our black sisters speak better Mandarin than you." Backed by her father, she wasn't scared of me. Like a monkey, she shimmied right up a tree. Well, that tree climbing talent, she gets it straight from her old man. I used a fishing rod to shoo her down from the tree. I turned around, and her father had arrived. The father and daughter were huddled together, trembling. The 2 drama queens put on a whole boohoo performance for me right then and there. Honestly, looking at Seong-dong now, with that shameless, thick-skinned act of his, a carbon copy of his daughter, you'd never guess he was once the brooding prince, the untouchable heartthrob. Even the heroine herself would shed tears upon seeing this, shaking her head in disbelief. Men fall silent, women weep, a sorrow beyond compare. After 8 years of relentless phone harassment from my deadbeat dad, he suddenly went radio silent because my heartless mother, who abandoned her husband and child all those years ago, grew tired of her wandering ways and has now returned to the nest. Even that scumbag of a father agreed to let her come back. It seems they never properly got a divorce back then, so now they probably, maybe, don't even need to remarry. Now these 2 old, rotten souls are at each other's throats every day at home, and they're obsessed with calling me to air each other's dirty laundry. I wanted to say serves them right or it takes one to know one, but hearing the chaos on the other end of the line, I just swallowed those words. I thought I was insulting them, but they might have taken it as a sudden surge of filial piety and a sincere blessing. Seong-dong has been estranged from his parents for years, with no communication between them. The only possible future interaction would be receiving a lawyer's letter, demanding he fulfill his duty of care or handle inheritance matters. I reckon the former scenario is less likely. There's an unverified notion that a small subset of highly educated individuals can be emotionally detached. This certainly held true for Seong-dong's parents. They found their fulfillment in academia and their careers. To them, a child wasn't a source of joy, but more of a social obligation, a burden they felt compelled to bear. They treated this additional burden with a simple, brusque, and rather unfriendly manner. So, when Seong-dong left home, beyond a few perfunctory phone calls during his early college years, his parents made no serious effort to find him or ask him to return. After Seong-dong and I had Joy, his parents only dutifully saw him once over a video call, showing none of the typical elderly enthusiasm for a new grandchild. Even when we gave Joy his rather unconventional name, his parents raised no objections. It seems that mutual non-interference is the final boundary and respect we have for each other. Just as everything was slowly getting back on track, I received a call from a voice I hadn't heard in a long time. "Anja, Are you and Xiangdong back in the country? Let's grab a cup of tea and catch up. I paused, and the long slackened string in my mind slowly began to tighten. Should we invite Xiangdong to join us? Leading Lan fell silent for a moment. I heard her let out a soft, quick sigh on the other end of the line, clear as day. No need to invite him. Let's just have a girls' get-together. Come to think of it, Luting Lan and I were desk mates for a while in high school. In the eyes of the world, it should have been our relationship that grew closer, not Xiangdong, the man she spent a lifetime with in a love-hate relationship, entangled for years. 11 Luting Lan made a special trip, flying in on a plane ticket she bought from the city where she works. We arranged to meet at the bar of the 5-star resort hotel where she was staying. When she arrived, she was wearing a Burberry trench coat and custom-made, casual flat shoes. Her hair, dyed a deep auburn, fell in loose waves to her shoulders. Her makeup was flawless, her features as delicate as a painting. She was a world apart from the studious class monitor I remembered, the one with the simple ponytail, black-framed glasses, who lived in her books, utterly oblivious to the world outside. Of course, time had changed more than just her, it had changed me, too. That once delicate, coquettish girl who adored long hair, mermaid waves, and all things sparkly has transformed into a supremely cool middle-aged woman with a short crop, sun-kissed skin, and a signature style of oversized bomber jackets paired with carrot pants. Ready to take on the world across what felt like lifetimes, spanning 3 or 4 decades, we sized each other up and exchanged polite, knowing nods. After we were seated, the server brought us our drinks. She spoke first, her tone firm and leaving no room for doubt. You lied to me, Anjia. You've been lying to me all along. I set down my coffee spoon, looked up, and met her gaze calmly. You're the one who wanted to lie to yourself. I was just helping you. Her hand tightened abruptly around the spoon, her pupils contracting to pinpricks. We're all smart people here. No need for lengthy explanations. A hint is enough. You came back too, she murmured, less a question seeking an answer and more a soft, private thought. I've always had my suspicions, but I refuse to believe it. I'd rather believe what you said was true, that you and Xiangdong were tearing each other apart on your way to hell, than accept that you lied to me. That you two actually built a happy life together. Exactly. If Xiangdong and I were truly happy together, wouldn't all her efforts in her past life just make her a complete fool? You have to understand, when she hid my note back then, she genuinely believed she was acting righteously, trying to save a misguided prodigy from going astray. If that foundational belief were shattered, how could she possibly justify her actions within her own logic? How could she maintain the moral high ground? But she quickly found a way. So you're a reincarnator too. That explains everything. She crossed her arms, resting them on the marble countertop, her posture composed and still. I suppose you turned over a new leaf, started afresh, and that's what altered the fate between you and Xiangdong. Excuse me, from start to finish, that statement reeks of a condescending, judgmental arrogance. Misleading Lan. Even now, do you still not understand the root cause of your failure in both of your lives? I sat back down as well, straightened my posture, and met her gaze. On equal footing, I have not turned over a new leaf, because there is no leaf to turn. I am still the person I was in my past life. Xiangdong is still the Xiangdong from the past. You lived right across from him, yet from childhood to adulthood, you never noticed his silent struggles, never heard his voiceless cries for help. You refused to accept his vulnerability and tears, preferring instead to fantasize about a perfect, unattainable flower on a high peak for your own gratification. The world remains exactly as it was yesterday, unchanged in the slightest. My voice was not loud, but every word carried the resentment, pain, and contempt I once felt. And you, just like in your past life, remain arrogant and conceited. You can't see the real person, only a simple, fabricated persona. In your heart, you stubbornly believe that only those with good grades are worthy of others with good grades. You think that only families of equal social standing deserve to have truly solid love and marriage. In your view, the poor are only fit for depravity, baseness, and malice. As poverty breeds wickedness, only the rich can be noble, kind, and just, for wealth cultivates a conscience. But there's also an old saying, chivalry is often found among the humble, while betrayal often comes from the learned. You think I'm poor, my grades are terrible, and that by getting close to Xiangdong, I can only drag him down to hell. But have you ever considered that grades aren't the only thing that determines one's life? There's more than one path to success. Just like finding a life partner isn't a multiple-choice test, there's no such thing as a correct or obvious answer. People spend their entire lives searching through the vast sea of humanity for that one person who makes their soul feel whole, who makes them feel pain or tears, laughter or joy, He or she doesn't have to be perfect, outstanding, wealthy, or even healthy, but once you find that person, your soul will tell you, it's them, they make everything feel worth it. That kind of relationship isn't necessarily healthy. Take my scumbag parents, for example, by any measure. They are the polar opposite of model parents, yet, I have to admit, they might truly be each other's one and only. Even Seong-dong's parents are included. They managed to live under the same roof for a lifetime in mutual indifference, yet were perfectly aligned in their treatment of their son. Isn't that a peculiar kind of symbiotic relationship in itself? Life is not a pre-drawn template, showcasing only health, positivity, perfection, and moral virtue. Life is a complex palette where light and darkness coexist, and baseness stands alongside nobility. Nature creates all things in endless variety. That's what makes life so rich and wonderful. The true joy of being human lies in being the master of one's own fate, making decisions with free will and bearing the risks and responsibilities that come with them. Seong Dong has his own reasons for loving me. Who are you to sit in judgment, arrogantly deciding for him what's good and what's not? The moment your good intentions are rejected, you go all out to drag Seong Dong and me through the mud, down to the very depths of hell. So we should just rot and decay, to atone for our sins, to make your foresight and righteousness shine all the brighter. Just because you get good grades and come from a privileged background, that makes you the righteous, morally superior, unchallengeable God. Everything you desire should be served to you on a silver platter, with the utmost reverence. Le Tinglan, it's time you woke up. The real world doesn't revolve around your will, it has its own logic. If you can't see through it, if you can't accept it, then you'll forever be pinning your hopes for a happy life on the misfortune of me and Seong Dong. You will never, ever be free. The words were barely out of his mouth when a cup of coffee was flung in my face. Thankfully, I wasn't wearing any makeup today, and my jacket was loose enough that the t-shirt underneath, though soaked, didn't show any obvious signs from the outside. I took out a tissue, wiped the smeared cream from my face, and beckoned the extremely nervous waiter standing nearby. After paying for my own coffee, I stood up and looked at the woman across from me. She was trembling all over. Her glittery eyeshadow was smudged from the violent trembling of her eyelids, and her blush couldn't conceal the pallor of her complexion. Tinglan, please let us go, if only for the sake of how fervently I once admired you, or perhaps, for the sake of my miserable death in a past life, a death you had some part in. Just live your own life well and don't come looking for me again. When I got home, Seong Dong and Joey were lying under the tree. Next to them were two large, open cardboard boxes filled with wooden pieces of all sizes and thicknesses. A while back, Joey had mentioned she wanted a treehouse. I took a lightning-fast shower, changed my clothes in a race against the clock, and joined their little work group. Wow, these two are way too quick. If I'd been any later, I probably wouldn't have gotten to do even the final steps. With the treehouse finished, I had a sudden idea. I grabbed a palette, and the three of us, with our multicolored fingers, painted wildly and freely all over it. Just after Seong Dong stole a kiss, he suddenly froze and cried out, "The soup! I've got soup on the stove." Ah, with his arms flailing, he bolted into the back kitchen like a rabbit shot with an arrow. Joy happily burrowed into my arms and, catching me off guard, smeared paint all over my face. I searched everywhere for a suitable branch. "You've got some nerve, you little rascal. Have you finished your essay for today?" she shrieked, jumped down from the tree, and slipped into the kitchen. I stood before the treehouse, holding the branch, looking at my child, my love, my home. In the clamorous twilight, the world and I share a knowing smile. Life is so beautiful. The end. Story 2. The junior who had a crush on Zhou Rang left me paralyzed from the waist down. He knelt by my hospital bed, holding my hand with guilt, vowing to care for me forever. Yet later, he was rolling between the sheets with that junior in our own home, and there I was behind the door, powerless to even turn away. After a year of marriage, Zhou Rang's guilt had completely faded. On the slope, he personally unlocked my wheelchair and pushed me into traffic. He only said one thing, "Donga, I owe you nothing." When I woke again, I was back in my junior year of college in the foot spa. Zhou Rang crouched humbly before me with his toolkit. "1, madam, the water temperature is adjusted." I stared blankly at the person before me. At that moment, Zhou Rang still carried a youthful innocence between his brows. He pressed his lips together nervously, face flushed with embarrassment, eyes brimming with both hurt and defiance. When I remained silent, "Xiadonga, if you came here just to humiliate me, mission accomplished. Now please let me work." The air turned glacial. My best friend Xiao tried to defuse the tension, but I caught her by the wrist. Then I looked up at Zhou Rang, glancing at his name tag, Technician 35. "You find your job humiliating, I coolly averted my gaze. Your work ethic is unacceptable, you don't even bother serving customers properly. I want someone else. Zhou Rang stared straight at me. In his mind, I should have been groveling to please him. The old Xia Dongge would never have spoken to Zhou Rang in such an icy tone. Lying on the bed, I said coldly, get out. Zhou Rang's knuckles turned white as he gripped the toolbox. His eyelids twitched as if deeply humiliated before he turned to leave. When everyone had left, Qiao moved closer and asked, have you been possessed? Weren't you just defending Zhou Rang earlier, saying his hands were meant to dance across piano keys, not massage feet? Why the sudden change? I buried my face in my hands and let out an exhausted sigh. Looking up again, I gave a wry smile. Someone like Zhou Rang isn't worth my attention. Qiao smiled approvingly. Glad you finally came around. That wasn't easy. Mid-conversation, sudden commotion erupted outside the door. Let me in. Don't stop me. Jiang Xia burst in, eyes red with anger as she confronted me. Xia Dongge, how could you humiliate Senior Zhou? A proud man like him. Do you have any idea what this means to him? Qiao frowned. And who exactly are you? Jiang Xia turned away. Rich girls like you could never understand the struggles Senior Zhou and I've been through. You just leech off your parents, while we earn our keep with dignity. If anyone should be ashamed, it's you parasites. Jiang Xia is that Junior Zhou Rang always talks about. Listen to that defiant tone. What Zhou Rang admired most about Jiang Xia was her unyielding spirit. Even after we got married, he'd often mention how she bloomed like a flower. Pushing through concrete, the complete opposite of my crippled self, I glanced at Jiang Xia's uniform and suddenly remembered, when Zhou Rang started working at this foot spa, she immediately quit her bubble tea shop job and followed him here the next day. I smirked at her. What a coincidence. The parasite you're badmouthing happens to own this place. Consider this your termination notice. You. Jiang Xia's face flushed then paled. Panic flashing in her eyes, Zhou Rang rushed over. At the sight of him, her eyes welled up. Senior, I just wanted to stand up for you. I didn't mean to upset Xia. Zhou Rang stepped in front of Jiang Xia, frowning. If you've got a problem, take it out on me. Don't take your anger out on others. That's just laughable. Not working during office hours. Think this is your damn living room. I glared at Zhou Rang. Take it out on you. Who the hell do you think you are? Both of you. Pack your shit and get out now. Understood. 2. I chased after Zhou Rang for 2 years. He's a piano prodigy with slender, dexterous hands that can make even the most ordinary piece sound extraordinary. He played the piano while I danced. We were once considered the perfect artistic duo. The arts have always been an expensive field to pursue. By his junior year, Zhou's family could no longer afford to support his education. He agreed to date me just to stay in school. Blinded by joy, I missed the resentment and humiliation in his eyes. I ended up covering all his college expenses. Zhou Rang and I got engaged right after graduation. As expected, on the very day of our engagement, Jiang Xia pushed me down the stairs, and I broke my spine. Zhou Rang rushed to the hospital, his eyes bloodshot as he knelt by my bed and said, Dongge, I'll marry you. But Jiang Xia is only 22, she has a real shot at joining a top-tier dance company. Could we just let this go? Under the covers, I dug my nails into my lifeless legs, my voice trembling. But Zhou Rang, I was a dancer too. His hands shook as he clutched mine, tears falling onto my skin like rain. Dongge, just let her go, will you? Zhou Rang knew perfectly well that elite dance company he mentioned had always been my dream. I was supposed to join right after the engagement. I was this close. After being discharged, I became partially paralyzed and could never return to the stage. Zhou Rang pleaded with countless people but still couldn't get Jiang Xia released. Later he visited me daily, weeping with guilt, saying it was all his fault that I ended up like this. For the longest time, he never once mentioned Jiang Xia. I thought he had truly moved on. Dongge, I'll take responsibility for you. Trust me on this. Zhou Rang gazed at me with tearful, soulful eyes. I nodded. My own eyes reddened. My wedding with Zhou Rang went smoothly. He was genuinely good to me at first, until Jiang Xia showed up at my home trembling with rage. I confronted her. Shouldn't you be in prison? How is this possible? Jiang Xia looked down at me with a smirk, holding out my school dance costume and shoes. Senior, you left something behind, she said. I'm just returning your belongings. She smirked at my legs. Though I suppose you don't need them anymore. I lunged at her like a madman, screaming, How are you here? How are you here? Jiang Xia took a step back, relishing the sight of me tumbling helplessly from the wheelchair. She batted her eyelashes. I owe my ability to stand here so comfortably to your dear father. I froze. Zhou Rang happened to return at that moment. He frowned at Jiang Xia before rushing over to support me. With bloodshot eyes, I clutched his hand tightly and pointed at Jiang Xia. She escaped from prison, Call the police to arrest her now, hurry. Zhou Rang looked at me with pity. Donga, Jiang Xia didn't break out of prison. Seeing Zhou Rang's calm expression, I completely broke down. He clung to me desperately, urging Jiang Xia to leave immediately. That day I sank my teeth deep into Zhou Rang's shoulder, staining his white shirt crimson with blood. Only then did I realize my father, seeing me so despondent, had feared I might do something drastic. Back then, Zhou Rang was the only one who could bring light to my eyes, and I became utterly dependent on him. Zhou Rang approached my father, offering to marry me and stay by my side for life, on the condition that Jiang Xia be spared without a single blemish on her record. As I was my father's only daughter, his heart softened and he agreed. Later, Jiang Xia returned to campus. Her 2-month disappearance was whitewashed as a study abroad exchange, after which she became a scholarship-winning campus goddess in everyone's eyes. After learning the truth, I cried daily, consumed by anxiety and insecurity. Zhou Rang treated me even better than before, tolerating all my tantrums without complaint. Over time, I gradually came to believe everything was my fault. Zhou Rang had sacrificed too much. I started walking on eggshells to please him. Jiang Xia never showed up again. In the 3rd year of our marriage, Zhou Rang completely took over my family's company. My father suffered a stroke from overwork and was hospitalized. I kept wanting to visit him, but Zhou wouldn't allow it. That night, they drank until the early hours celebrating Zhou Rang's successful takeover of the company. In the end, it was Jiang Xia who brought him home. In the dimly lit living room, I watched my husband being affectionate with the woman who ruined me. Zhou Rang staggered over and patted my head, saying, Donga, it's too late. I don't feel comfortable letting Xia go home alone. She'll stay with us tonight. With that, he led Jiang Xia back to their room. A door now stood between us. Inside, laughter and warmth lingered. Outside, only cold desolation remained. 3. The whole campus is buzzing about me finally cutting off Zhou Rang. The forums are flooded with discussions about it. Onlooker 1. Bet you anything Xia Donga is playing hard to get. No way she'd give up. After chasing Zhou Rang for so long. Onlooker 2. Xia's gorgeous, loaded and talented. Zhou's just a social climber. So what if she was blind before? Our queen's got her vision back now. Melon Observer 3, seconded. Nailed it, Summer Zhou. If y'all got so much free time, go practice your skills. Anybody with eyes can see Zhou Rang Sr. was never into Xia Donga. She threw herself at him but got rejected. That's why she gave up. So cringe. Soon the comment section erupted into chaos, with Summer Zhou single-handedly taking on the entire crowd. Quite entertaining to watch. As I looked down at my phone, a shadow suddenly fell across my view. I looked up to see Zhou Rang staring at me with a stern face. We need to talk. I grabbed my things and walked away without looking back. Talk to him. I feel sick just looking at him now. Donga. Zhou Rang came chasing after me. Seeing me walk faster, he stood still and shouted, Xia Donga. Don't make me angry. You know what'll happen. I froze abruptly. This was the exact phrase Zhou Rang, who cheated after marriage, always used. Memories of him yanking my hair and beating me flooded back, my body trembling uncontrollably. I turned slowly to find him standing a short distance away. That gaze, it was definitely not the restrained Zhou Rang I knew now. He approached step by step, finally stopping just an arm's length before me. With the same smug confidence as calling a dog, he extended his hand. Come here. I froze in place while Zhou Rang maintained that faint smirk. After a moment, I lifted my head and took a firm step back. Watching Zhou Rang's stunned expression, I spat out, go fuck yourself. I turned and walked away, hearing Zhou Rang grind his teeth behind me. You'll regret this. Rounding the corner, I slumped against the wall gasping for air, my palms slick with cold sweat. No matter how calm I appeared on the surface, but years of psychological manipulation had wired me to instinctively fear Zhou Rang. I kept telling myself it's a fresh start. Zhou Rang's just a penniless student now, powerless to do anything. Yet this gnawing unease persisted until I heard a hauntingly familiar melody in its past life. This composition had taken the internet by storm the moment it dropped. Its creator was an obscure pianist who'd lived in a basement for 3 years. The heartbreaking yet uplifting backstory made the piece resonate deeply. But now, the composer's credit went to Zhou Rang. I cursed under my breath. What a scumbag. The pity was, no one else knew how despicable Zhou Rang truly was. According to the timeline from my past life, the original composer only had a rough idea for this melody in their head at this point, hadn't even started writing it down. Even he himself probably felt like he'd had a mental collision with Zhou Rang. As before, this composition grew increasingly popular, with many approaching to purchase its copyright. Zhou Rang suddenly became the golden boy of the entire academy. This composition Solved his financial difficulties. Those days of struggling to pay tuition and put food on the table in my past life never returned, though I despised Zhou Rang's actions. I couldn't produce any evidence and had to watch this scoundrel thrive, for I saw Zhou Rang again 2 weeks later. He played mariage d'amour under the girls' dormitory under the streetlight. Zhou Rang stood in a tailored suit, his eyes radiating sheer arrogance. The air buzzed with fawning admiration as starstruck girls gasped breathlessly around him. As the song ended, Zhou Rang rose and gazed at the crowd, declaring with theatrical tenderness, "Xia, be my girlfriend." Zhou Rang gazed at Jiang Xia with burning intensity as their classmates erupted in rowdy cheers. From my dorm window, I watched Jiang Xia cover her trembling lips, tears glistening as she nodded fervently. "I do." The two embraced in each other's arms. Zhou Rang spotted me, still holding Jiang Xia, tilting his head up with a smirk before shooting me a knowing eyebrow raise. I rolled my eyes and drew the curtains shut. Zhou Rang and Jiang Xia's romance burned with passionate intensity. They broke into the music classroom at midnight, playing piano and dancing until campus security chased them halfway across the school, defying school regulations. They took commercial gigs and went viral online, becoming the internet's most envied golden couple. They kissed and took photos atop the piano-shaped stone monument that symbolizes musicians' devotion. Jiang Xia's pale feet rested on the piano keys while Zhou Rang knelt, attentively painting her toenails. Of course, none of this had anything to do with me. After Rebirth, I cherished every second. The sheer exhilaration of dancing freely with my legs was intoxicating. I started preparing for the dance troupe audition a year in advance. Those sweat-drenched practice sessions in the studio filled me with pure joy and fulfillment. Zhou Rang, Jiang Xia, your misconduct has severely damaged the school's reputation. After faculty deliberation, we're issuing both of you formal warnings. Standing outside the office door, hearing their names mentioned left me momentarily dazed. I knocked gently on the door. The counselor noticed my expression softening slightly. I handed over the form in my hand. "Here's the roster you requested, Professor." The counselor took it and turned to Jiang Xia. "You and Xia Dongga are in the same program. Her current skills rival dancers with years of company experience. While you're busy with flashy gimmicks, learn from your senior Xia. In our field, romance means nothing, only skill matters." Jiang Xia forced a nod with a strained smile, but her gaze toward me turned venomous. "All right, the college will handle your disciplinary actions." "Hold on," Zhou Rang cut in with a smile. "Professor, take a look at this before deciding whether to punish us." He handed the advisor a sheet of musical notation. The advisor grew more delighted with each glance, while my frown deepened. I looked up at Zhou Rang. He met my gaze without a trace of guilt, his eyes brimming with smugness. "Professor, as a fellow professional, you understand this composition's worth better than I do," Zhou Rang said reassuringly while taking Jiang Xia's hand. "The piece hasn't been published yet. I can add our school's name to the credits. As for disciplinary action, surely you wouldn't want your star student tarnished with a black mark." The advisor fell silent, placing the score on the desk before saying, "Go back for now. I'll discuss this with the administration and get back to you. Thanks for your hard work, Professor." Zhou Rang nodded and walked out of the office with Jiang Xia. I said a quick goodbye to the advisor and hurried after them. "Zhou Rang, wait up." Jiang Xia immediately stepped in front of Zhou Rang when she saw me, shooting me a hostile glare. "Xia Dongga, have you no shame? He's my boyfriend now." My gaze burned into Zhou Rang's eyes with barely contained fury. Zhou Rang patted Jiang Xia's head affectionately. "Be good. Go back first." He leaned close to her ear. "Didn't you always want to join Splendor Dance Troupe? I've got a surprise for you in a few days." Jiang Xia playfully punched his arm with a smile. "Then you'd better not get too close to her." "Got it, babe." After suppressing my disgust and waiting for Jiang Xia to leave, I confronted him. "You stole someone's composition again. You know better than anyone that teacher Yutong wrote that piece to save his wife's life. How can you live with yourself?" Zhou Rang sneered. "Why wouldn't I? Yutong wouldn't finish this song for another 6 months. By then his wife would already be terminal. What good would a hit song do? Better to let it enhance my portfolio where it can actually make a difference. Teacher Yutong was your mentor. He's the one who brought you out of the mountains." Zhou Rang roared. "When the song blows up and I get the money, I'll lend him the surgery fees. I'm helping him." I froze. Zhou Rang's twisted morals shattered my last shred of tolerance. "You're utterly shameless. Keep stealing others' work and you'll run out of songs eventually. Sooner or later, everyone will see you're just a fraud." Zhou Rang shrugged with indifference. "That's probably years away. Worst case scenario, I'll gracefully admit I've lost my touch and retire behind the scenes. People will just lament my departure and forever remember me as the prodigy Zhou Rang. By then I'll have fame and fortune. What do I care about petty gossip? Zhou rang. Stepped closer, eyes burning with malice. Regretting your choices now, Xiadonga. I gave you a chance. The first thing I did after rebirth was find you, but you blew it. Now I'm the celebrated genius while you're the pitiful cast-off. You and that idiot father of yours will get exactly what you deserve. I frowned. What does my father have to do with this? Disgust flashed in Zhou Rang's eyes as he sneered. Know why I returned later than you? Because I spent a year on the run after your death. All thanks to that old bastard father of yours. I should have rightfully inherited all Xia family shares as your widower. But no, your dad had contingency plans. The day your death was announced, his lawyer donated every last share and handed police evidence of Xiaxia pushing you off that building. Xiaxia's reputation was ruined. She panicked during the arrest, ran into traffic, and got obliterated by a truck. 3 months pregnant too. Zhou Rang grew increasingly agitated. Your father deserved to die. The bastard actually had people investigate your death beforehand, trying to send me to prison. Because of him, I've been on the run for over a year. That stroke-ridden old fool should have rotted in the nursing home. Why did he have to interfere? I froze in shock. My father had been hospitalized before my accident. He knew everything all along. He'd even arranged everything for me before collapsing himself. My eyes stung with unshed tears. Xiadonga, my return proves even the heavens reject that ending. The Xia family owes me and Xiaxia, and you'll repay every last debt. Slowly turning to Zhou Rang with bloodshot eyes, I whispered hoarsely, yes, it's time to repay. You competed in Golden Age dance troupe's audition last lifetime. Surely you remember the champion's routine. Zhou Rang's tone brooked no argument. Recreate it for Xiaxia. That trophy belongs to her. My fists clenched tightly as I sneered. Fine. Zhou Rang was pleased by my compliance. Xiadonga, admit it. No matter how many times we start over, you'd still fall for me. Don't worry, if you behave, I might reconsider. Zhou Rang strutted away triumphantly. I watched his retreating figure, my gaze turning icy. 5 With 3 months left until the Xingshi dance troupe auditions, Jiang Xia, egged on by Zhou Rang, showed up at the practice room to harass me daily. I put my heart and soul into teaching her the dance. Jiang Xia sneered. So much for the goddess Xia, all that effort choreographing this dance, only to hand it over to me. Seems Zhou Rang told her this dance was mine. True, though I wonder if you're even capable of pulling it off. Save your concern, I'll definitely outdance you. Jiang Xia brimmed with confidence, hoping to dominate the assessment with that same regal air. While we were preparing for exams, Zhou Rang wasn't idle either. He signed up for an obscure competition. The event seemed insignificant, but who could have predicted it would catch the eye of world-class masters? Its top performers later became industry legends. Zhou Rang's prior reputation gave him a head start, causing the competition to gain attention earlier than in his previous life. Riding on the coattails of another artist's hit song, Zhou Rang clinched the championship without breaking a sweat. The mastermind behind the scenes had taken notice of Zhou Rang, but to my surprise, it wasn't him who presented the award on finals day. I froze when a noticeably younger face appeared on camera. On the live broadcast, Zhou Rang's brows furrowed almost imperceptibly, clearly displeased with this person presenting his award, yet he restrained himself in public, his gaze fixed on the trophy with a calculating glint that starkly contrasted with the other man's composed demeanor. The man turned to Zhou Rang with a smile. I've heard your previous works, each one remarkable. Might I ask you a question? Zhou Rang kept his eyes on the trophy, his tone indifferent bordering on impatient. Go ahead. Unfazed by the rudeness, the man remained courteous. I'm curious about the dramatic emotional shifts in your compositions. Your first original piece radiated hope and passion, yet the second plunged into profound grief, all within a fortnight. What inspired such a stark transition in so short a time? Zhou Rang's expression froze, a flicker of panic flashing in his eyes. Camera flashes bombarded them as reporters scrambled for the scoop. Yet several minutes passed without Zhou Rang uttering a single word. After a pause, his face darkened as he said flatly, creation is deeply personal. I won't discuss it publicly. That question stays unanswered. The man's smile faltered as he nodded understandingly. My apologies. That was presumptuous of me. Fame grants infinite leniency. People instinctively justified Zhou Rang's eccentric behavior as artistic temperament. After the competition, Zhou Rang became the piano world's brightest rising star. The name on everyone's lips. These days he's constantly networking with elites at business functions. I haven't seen him in the practice room for ages. What's more, the original tournament champion was supposed to be taken as a disciple by that grandmaster, but in this lifetime, apart from the initial hype, the master never showed up again. Though strange, it might just be the butterfly effect after rebirth. I didn't dwell on it. After Zhou Rang rose to fame, he befriended some locally influential figures. His first move was to throw subtle obstacles in my father's company's way. My dad's been swamped lately, barely home all week. Zhou Rang called me. He said, consider this a friendly warning. Teach Xia properly. Got it. I tightened my grip on the phone. Understood. After I taught the exam choreography, Jiang Xia never showed up in the practice room again. She only crammed a few quick run-throughs right before the assessment. Soon came the evaluation day for the Grandeur dance troupe. Jiang Xia arrived at the audition radiant in meticulously prepared dancewear, having hired a professional makeup artist. The evaluation process is completely transparent and open, with all candidates permitted to observe on-site, and the entire session is being recorded. The previous groups of examinees performed at similar levels, and the judging panel appeared quite satisfied. Jiang Xia stood behind me and whispered, I really don't know why you bothered showing up, just asking for humiliation. I curled my lips and nodded, looking forward to being humiliated by you, Junior. Jiang, when the examiner called my name, I ignored Jiang Xia's sarcastic remarks and stepped forward as the music began. I danced with all my might, just like I had during countless days and nights of practice. In an instant, the surrounding noise faded away. I felt a spotlight shining down as I danced in my most beautiful costume, performing the moves I loved. When the music ended, I opened my eyes, breathing slightly heavily. The surroundings were so quiet I could hear nothing but my own breathing. Someone started clapping, and suddenly the room erupted in applause as I bowed with a smile. As I exited, a fellow dancer came up to congratulate me. You were amazing. Everyone was mesmerized. Even the judges couldn't stop nodding. You've definitely got this in the bag. Thanks. I didn't feign modesty. No one understood better than me how much effort I'd poured into preparing for this audition. I'll keep working hard to deserve these flowers and applause. TCH, who are you trying to fool? Jiang Xia rolled her eyes nearby. Soon it was her turn to take the stage. I have to admit, Jiang Xia has a natural talent for this. She doesn't practice diligently, but her innate abilities carry her through. The performance was flawless though not particularly outstanding. It's just a shame the dance ended up being so conventional. I had higher hopes for her. Jiang Xia's innovative choreography also earned her plenty of applause. She strode off stage with her head held high, oblivious to the furrowed brows of a veteran judge in the panel. Jiang Xia deliberately bumped into me as she passed by, smirking. Oops, senior, guess I stole your spotlight. I curled my lips slightly, watching her in silence. My gaze made Jiang Xia visibly uneasy. She scoffed and walked away. My gaze shifted to the judges' panel, where the frowning teacher exchanged a few words with colleagues before their eyes subtly drifted toward Jiang Xia. Jiang Xia, who'd been confident of victory moments earlier, now sensed something amiss and nervously clutched at her skirt. Though all contestants should have been dismissed immediately after performances, we were all instructed to remain. The venue was then sealed off as organizing committee officials arrived. Everyone was whispering and speculating, terrified the matter might involve them. I waited calmly, but Jiang Xia couldn't sit still. She crept up to me and asked anxiously, Xia Dongga, did you do something? I smiled. Jiang Xia, a clear conscience fears no false accusations. Why panic? Jiang Xia gnashed her teeth. If you ruin me, brother Zhou Rang will make you pay. I remained expressionless, ignoring everything she said. The committee members brought computers and kept cross-checking with the exam footage. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense as several teachers glared at Jiang Xia with barely contained fury. Jiang Xia tried to contact Zhou Rang, but her phone had been confiscated earlier, cutting off all outside communication. Half an hour later, the organizing committee immediately declared Jiang Xia's exam results invalid. On what grounds? Jiang Xia shouted in protest, her flawless makeup slightly contorted with anger. The committee members couldn't care less about her dissatisfaction and continued, not only are your results voided, examinee Jiang Xia will also be banned from all examinations and competitions organized by any institution for the next 5 years. Furthermore, we've already reported this incident to the police. You'll need to accompany us to the station to explain exactly how you obtained the confidential dance routine that hadn't been publicly released. The moment those words were spoken, the room erupted in uproar. Jiang Xia panicked too, her eyes reddening as her voice trembled. I didn't steal anything. It wasn't me. She turned to me. I get it now. This is all you're doing. Grabbing my arm desperately, she cried. It's her. She taught me all these dance moves. Arrest her instead. My eyes welled up. Junior, you must be confused from panic. This is the first time I've seen you perform this dance. Besides, everyone knows we don't get along. Why would I teach you such a beautiful routine if I knew it? You bitch, you knew all along, didn't you? I let Jiang Xia push me down weakly, tears welling up in my eyes. "It's okay if you hate me, Junior. It's all the senior's fault. Please calm down, you're scaring the other students," Jiang Xia screamed and lunged forward, only to be restrained by security personnel. Other classmates helped me up and comforted me. I wiped away my tears and glanced at Jiang Xia with undisguised contempt. The action sent her into another screaming fit. Terrified, I hid in the crowd watching her lose it. Just like in my past life, Jiang Xia always played the victim. The manipulative games she used on me are now coming back to haunt her tenfold. Since Jiang Xia insisted I was the one who leaked the dance moves to her, the organizing committee launched an investigation against me, but they found absolutely nothing. For that, we've got Zhou Rang to thank. To protect Jiang Xia from any harm, he privately rented practice studios and destroyed all surveillance footage during their dance training, all to prevent me from proving I taught Jiang Xia those moves and stealing her spotlight. Little did he know, this actually played right into my hands. After all, there's no possible connection between me and the secret dance project. While Jiang Xia and Zhou Rang were notorious troublemakers school-wide, is there any forbidden place they wouldn't dare to break into? Stealing a dance routine would be child's play for them. Besides, Jiang Xia and Zhou Rang are constantly featured on the forum's front page together with me. The committee could easily find out we've been at each other's throats, which only proves Jiang Xia's desperate measures, like a cornered rat biting wildly. As for me, I've been the victim through this entire ordeal. This incident has serious consequences. Jiang Xia got expelled and now faces potential jail time. Xia Dongga, you set me up. Zhou Rang cornered me on the street, the bloodshot eyes betraying how tirelessly he'd been running around for Jiang Xia these days. I chuckled. How could that be? I followed your instructions to the letter. Zhou Rang fumed. I asked you to help Xia win first place. Is this how you assist her? I watched him like a circus monkey. Since when did thieves become picky? You've stolen the grand prize this time. Why aren't you celebrating? Xia Dongga, you'll pay for this. Zhou Rang stormed off in a rage. I took out my phone and made a call. Initiate the plan. After that day, Zhou Rang grew desperate. He began shuttling between high-end business clubs, scrambling to expand his connections. Finally, at a grand banquet, Zhou Rang hooked up with a female tycoon. This businesswoman was a renowned entrepreneur with fortunes beyond counting. Through her, Zhou Rang gained access to high society circles. Rumor has it their latest amusement involves the crowd drinking and chatting while Zhou Rang plays music in the background. Those who fancied could even step up for a hands-on try. Zhou Rang could only force a smile while catering to the sugar mommies and wealthy benefactors. When Zhou Rang felt he'd grown close enough to his patroness, he seized the chance to ask her to clean up Jiang Xia's mess. To his shock, the patroness flew into a rage, calling him an ungrateful wretch who couldn't distinguish master from servant, daring to mention his mistress before his benefactor. Zhou Rang turned pale with fright and hurried to placate her. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt when I heard this. How did I know? Because that wealthy lady is my aunt. Sweetie, how much longer are we keeping up this act? That pretty boy annoys me. His shady intentions are written all over his face. So tiresome, my aunt complained while lounging on the sofa. I lowered my gaze. Indeed, Zhou Rang's thoughts were always written all over his face. Only someone as blind as my past self could have missed it. Almost there. Just hang on a little longer. My aunt sighed and poked my forehead in exasperation. My dad doesn't know about my collaboration with Auntie. My parents fell in love freely, but back then my father had nothing. My grandfather opposed their marriage, so Mom eloped with him. Grandpa was furious and said some harsh words. Stubborn as she was, Mom barely kept in touch with the family afterward. After I was born, Mom's health deteriorated. She reflected on many things and deeply regretted cutting ties with her family. Sadly, she passed away not long after reconciling with Grandpa later. Dad and I gradually lost contact with that side of the family. That's why Zhou Rang never knew about my maternal family in our past life. When Zhou Rang mentioned my father had a backup plan after my death, I immediately suspected he'd turned to Grandpa for help. Dad was already hospitalized by then. No matter how resourceful he was, he couldn't have planned that far ahead. The only explanation was Grandpa's intervention. After my rebirth, I visited Grandpa often. The old man would grumble about my visits, yet he'd personally prepare my favorite dishes each time, then insist we share tea and play chess together. Auntie doted on me too. She'd tear up every time she saw me. Later I casually probed Dad about it. He didn't deny it, just encouraged me to spend more time with Grandpa's side of the family. 7. When Zhou Rang saw my aunt wasn't biting, he started scheming other plans. He composed 10 hit songs in a single month, causing a sensation and earning the nickname Hit Machine. Reading the news, I muttered idiot under my breath before making a call. Time to move. 3 days later, at the peak of Zhou Rang's fame, someone claiming to be the original creator released a video. In the video, he detailed his creative journey from conception to completion, presenting timestamps of both handwritten and digital drafts. All evidence pointed to his work being identical to Zhou Rang's newly released piece. A single accuser might have been dismissed, but when over a dozen people simultaneously posted identical allegations, Zhou Rang became the epicenter of controversy. With media outlets swarming to cover the story, Zhou Rang launched emergency PR, tearfully proclaiming, "I knew my talent might breed jealousy, but never imagined this. Each composition is my child. If I plagiarized, I'd turn myself in without waiting for lawsuits." Public opinion became polarized. The video creator then delivered the knockout punch, "Being short on money, I couldn't bring myself to replace my old piano. That's why there's a slightly off note in my composition." Any trained ear would spot the dissonance immediately, yet Zhou Rang's score copied even that wrong note verbatim. Just as Zhou Rang attempted to defend himself, one person's appearance shattered him completely. It was a refined, bespectacled man, the same person seen in the video with his cancer-stricken wife. He produced a musical score and declared, "I composed this piece 6 months ago during my darkest hours after my wife's diagnosis. The melody was too emotionally heavy, so I shelved it to avoid spiraling into depression. Yet months later, I heard it being played by none other than my own student." With tears in his eyes, Professor Tong confronted Zhou Rang across the screen. "There's a line in the second movement written using my wife's pet name. If you claim this composition is yours, care to explain that?" Amid the heated arguments, one netizen dropped this bombshell in the comments: "The stylistic shifts in Zhou Rang's released compositions are too drastic. No composer can overhaul their signature style so effortlessly in such short time while producing this volume. Unless we're talking about some musical chameleon, then forget I said anything." The comment initially sank without trace, but after being shared by an industry heavyweight, it skyrocketed to legendary status. Turns out the influencer who reposted it was actually someone familiar. He was the man who questioned Zhou Rang at the competition that day. I later learned he's an internationally renowned piano virtuoso, and the junior disciple of that world-class maestro everyone admires. Having just returned to the country and being quite low-key, he rarely makes public appearances. With endorsements from authorities, people regained their senses. Some bloggers even created audio analysis videos debunking the claims point by point. Zhou Rang got completely owned in the end. Watching everything unfold behind my phone screen, I wasn't the least bit surprised. A text message popped up on my phone: "Boss, mission accomplished." I promptly wired the final payment to the other party. That's right, I did all of this. I had people contact the original composers whose works Zhou Rang plagiarized to verify their creative process. When I reached them, several had fallen into deep self-doubt after hearing Zhou's published tracks. They initially thought it was just coincidental similarities in the opening, but the more they composed, the more they realized their new creations perfectly matched Zhou's stolen works. They despised themselves, believing they were unworthy of being composers, even contemplating ending their lives at one point. Yet the real culprit behind all this continues to profit from their suffering, shamelessly feasting on the fruits of others' misery. The person who surprised me most was Yudo-sensei. I learned he had composed a song when donating to his wife's medical fund. The music score gathering dust on the shelf bled sorrow in every note. Yudo-sensei had written this song when his wife first fell ill. In his previous life, he refused to release such a heartbreaking composition, believing its existence meant his wife was no longer healthy. In the end, the family's savings ran dry, forcing teacher Tong to release this song. Yet none of this was known in their past life. That's precisely why Zhou Rang fell into such a deep trap. Plagiarizing a mentor's work is universally condemned across all professions. Crushed by public backlash, Zhou Rang fell from grace overnight. He was utterly finished. 8. The last time I saw Zhou Rang was at a nightclub owned by my grandfather. My aunt was just promising to gift me the club for my birthday when commotion erupted in the opposite room. A disheveled woman burst out, followed by a man clutching his hand. "Zhou Rang, have you no shame? That old man could be my father." Jiang Xia rushed out brandishing a fruit knife, her makeup smeared, collapsing to the ground in tears of utter despair. Meanwhile, Zhou Rang stood drenched in sweat, pressing his bleeding wrist as crimson trickled down. "It seems I'll never be able to play the piano again." I signaled the manager to clear the room and learned the reason behind it. Jiang Xia served a year in prison for what happened back then. After her release, Zhou Rang found her and introduced her to a big shot he used to know. Who would have thought that tycoon was nearly 60, Jiang Xia couldn't stomach it and ended up stabbing Zhou Rang with a fruit knife from the table in a fit of rage. Hearing this, I took a step back. Xiao Wang, we need to call the police. Our establishment is a legitimate wellness center. This client's indecent behavior is unacceptable and tarnishes our reputation. Only then did Zhou Rang realize I was the owner. When I remained silent, he nervously pursed his lips, face flushed with humiliation, eyes brimming with both defiance and wounded pride. Without me, Xia Dongge, it's all your fault. You did this to me. Why don't you just die? You should have died like you did in your past life. I gripped his chin and with a slight twist, Zhou Rang's jaw dislocated with a sickening pop. Leaning close to his ear, I sneered, Xia Dongge was never some saint. An eye for an eye. That's my creed. Did you really think stealing a few songs could make you famous? Without capital pulling strings behind the scenes, without my permission, you wouldn't even have gotten your face on camera. I built you up just to tear you down. That barely begins to repay what you owe me. Fool, you've been dancing to my tune from the start. First glory, then ruin. Zhou Rang could only glare and roar in impotent rage. I wiped my hands in disgust and ordered them thrown out. Zhou Rang was right about one thing, his rebirth was heaven's mercy on his wretched existence. Had Zhou Rang faced this punishment without his past life memories, he'd still be playing the innocent victim. Perfect. Now he'll carry the weight of 2 lifetimes, drowning in eternal remorse. By the way, his plagiarism case was soon adjudicated with a heavy sentence, enough to keep him fed for life. I successfully joined the Prosperity Dance Company, becoming principal dancer within 2 years and gracing world stages. The world feels so much brighter without scumbags. Arm in arm with my family, we've wandered every corner under the sun. Story 2. After my husband's white moonlight got married, he jumped off a building. Before jumping, he made a will, leaving all his money to the unborn child in his white moonlight's womb. That disgusting illegitimate child. Even I, the legitimate wife, missed out on all the company's shares, became a worker toiling for the unattainable love. Reborn into this life. Looking at the man before me, a trace of disgust flashed in my eyes. Like playing the devoted man. Huh. Then you can go die together with your white moonlight. 1. When I received the news that I was about to become a wage slave, I was so shocked I nearly fainted in the cafe. My husband's white moonlight, my arch-rival Jiang Yu, sat across from me with a pregnant belly, smiling innocently. Sister, blame it on our brother for loving me and the child too much. That's why he left the inheritance to me. After all, what father would want his own son to suffer? Isn't that right? Staring at the arrogant woman before me, I clenched my fists tightly. The sharp nails dug into my flesh, the pain excruciating. My husband committed suicide by jumping off a building some time ago, just when I thought I was about to inherit all his property and reach the peak of my life. A lawyer showed up at my house with my husband's will, followed by his unattainable love. In the will, all of my husband's shares were unconditionally given to the child in Jiang Yu's womb, his illegitimate child. As for me, I've gone from being the boss's wife to just another employee. How ironic that after all these years of hard work, I end up working for the mistress and her illegitimate child. Watching Jiang Yu continue to show off in front of me, the light in my eyes gradually dimmed. Then with a smile, I reached into my bag under the table and pulled out my butterfly knife for self-defense. Stabbed straight into the left eye of the woman opposite. Blood gushed out, accompanied by screams from the surrounding people. I stepped onto the table and slashed Jiang Yu's throat with another knife, still thinking of using the family fortune I'd worked so hard to build all these years to raise your illegitimate child in your dreams. Go to hell with that bastard man of yours. When I opened my eyes again, I thought I was in prison, but the pink curtains told me otherwise. My mother pushed the door open and stood by my bed with a calm expression. Yu Qing, let me ask you one more time, are you really going to marry that penniless Gu Qinghuai? That question jolted me fully awake. I had been reborn in my past life. I nodded without hesitation. Just because he was my first love in high school, I married into the Gu family with a maiden's longing and an exorbitant dowry. In this life, I threw myself onto the bed, kneeling and wailing, no, 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 I won't marry. I refuse to wed a penniless man. As soon as the words fell, I saw my mother heave a sigh of relief. Then she patted my shoulder and said with a smile, that's my daughter. Seeing you so bewitched recently, I thought you were possessed by a ghost. After saying this, my mother's expression immediately turned serious. The Gu family is waiting in the living room right now. Since you don't want to marry Gu Qinghuai, I'll go make it clear. After saying that, she was about to get up and leave, but I grabbed her arm. A cold sneer flashed through my eyes. In my past life, Gu Qinghuai's betrayal was etched deeply in my memory. Having been reborn, how could I let him off so easily? A smile spread across my face. Mom, this trouble was caused by me. I'll handle it myself. I'll talk to Uncle Gu about it. 2. In my past life, I was determined to marry Gu Qinghuai. The Gu family had fallen into decline in the capital, and upon hearing this, they acted as if they had stumbled upon a great bargain, immediately bringing Gu Qinghuai to propose marriage. At that time, Jiang Yu was still the adopted daughter of the Gu family and stubbornly followed them here. Gu Qinghuai, in front of his beloved, reluctantly accepted me. Thinking back now, he must have hated me to death. I picked a black cheongsam from the wardrobe, embroidered with several dark golden lotus flowers and gold thread. It exuded an air of dignified elegance as my mother watched me in the mirror putting on earrings and fixing my hair, instantly transforming from a college girl to a wealthy heiress. She nodded in satisfaction, my mother, and I came to the living room. From afar, I could see Gu's father rubbing his hands together, speaking to my father with a fawning expression, but my father sat stiffly on the chair with a stern face. Seeing me arrive, both Gu Qinghuai and Jiang Yu were somewhat stunned. The Gu family had fallen into decline, with the entire household crammed into a mere dozen square meter flat in the capital. For over a decade, Mr. Gu clung to his delusion of making a comeback, squandering what little remained of their savings. Thus, both Gu Qinghuai and Jiang Yu now dressed simply, completely unlike me. I glanced at Jiang Yu's face, not missing the unmistakable envy in her eyes. Seeing me arrive, Father Gu immediately greeted warmly, "Youqing's here, come sit down quickly." Look at Youqing's noble demeanor, it's clear she and Qinghuai are a match made in heaven. I smiled and touched the imperial green oval cabochon ring on my middle finger. Glancing at Gu Qinghuai across from me, his blue shirt faded from washing, I remained non-committal. Just as Father Gu was about to probe my father about my dowry, I raised my hand to interrupt him. "Uncle, I haven't agreed to marry Gu Qinghuai yet. Don't be so quick to calculate my dowry. The duck hasn't even reached your mouth, and you're already planning to suck the marrow from its bones." As soon as I finished speaking, I saw the Gu family's expressions darken in unison. Gu Qinghuai's voice turned stern. "Lin Yuqing, how dare you speak to my father like that? Apologize now." I glanced at him disdainfully and sneered, "What kind of thing are you, daring to order me around? I'm the eldest daughter of the wealthy Lin family, your education sponsor. Even if I didn't give you life, I raised you, and now you're demanding an apology from me. I've never seen a shameless man like you who acts tough while living off others. Such audacity." After speaking, I noticed my father sitting beside me immediately brighten up, his gaze towards me filling with appreciation. I couldn't help but laugh. My father was upright and taciturn, so now that I'd voiced his inner thoughts, he naturally felt relieved. The Gu family was momentarily stunned to see their formerly obedient me acting so shrewish. Seizing the advantage, I pointed at Gu Qinghuai's nose and scolded, "If I hadn't funded you back then, you'd have dropped out and be selling pancakes on the street by now. Where would you get the money to start a business? It's an honor that I took a liking to you, and you dare speak to me like this." After saying that, I gave a meaningful glance at Jiang Yu standing beside Gu Qinghuai, implying, "Or is it that your heart belongs to someone else? And I'm playing the villain who separates lovers?" Jiang Yu's lips instantly turned pale upon hearing my words. Some time ago, Father Gu was even willing to marry her off to a wealthy merchant in his 50s for bride price, just to secure a new loan and make a comeback. It was Gu Qinghuai who stepped forward, claiming he could marry the eldest daughter of the Lin family, which finally made Father Gu spare Jiang Yu. I'll never forget how Jiang Yu touched her pregnant belly in our past life and smiled at me, saying, "Do you know what my brother told me back then? On the night of your wedding, my brother held me and told me to endure a little longer, that once he becomes powerful enough, we can be together openly." When Gu Qinghuai heard what I said, he immediately reacted as if struck by a guilty conscience, saying sharply, "Lin Yuqing, don't go too far. Jiang Yu and I are just siblings." As the words fell, a faint smile curled at the corners of my lips. This was a confession without prompting. Having navigated the business world for years, my father had long honed a pair of piercing, discerning eyes. His gaze swept over Gu Qinghuai and Jiang Yu, and in an instant, he grasped the gist of the matter, followed swiftly by a surge of anger. Father sneered as he turned his gaze toward Gu's father. "The ancients always said to govern the state, one must first regulate the family. Old Gu, if you can't even keep your own household in order, no wonder your business ventures fail." After speaking, the father coldly signaled to the servant behind him, "With a family like this, you still dare dream of marrying my daughter? Preposterous. Attendants, escort this guest out." 3. Just like that, the entire Gu family was thrown out by us. Gu Qinghuai looked particularly disheveled, standing awkwardly outside the Lin family's villa, raising his head to glare at me watching the spectacle from the balcony. Without hesitation, I flipped him the bird. Shortly after, the property security Guards dragged Gu Qinghai away. In my past life, everyone around me doubted the marriage arrangement between me and Gu Qinghai, saying we were doomed to fail. Only one person consistently tried to bring me and Gu Qinghai together from start to finish. That was one of my friends, Song Yu, the illegitimate daughter of the Song family. But when Jiang Yu came to seize my assets, Song Yu vanished into thin air like steam. Later, I discovered she had taken a large sum of money and emigrated abroad. Looking back now, I suspect the Gu family had bribed people around me to ensure I married into the Gu family safely. They truly went to great lengths. The night I rejected Gu Qinghai, Song Yu texted me asking why I broke up with him. Her tone wasn't pleasant, and there was even a hint of accusation between the lines. Gu Qinghai is handsome and driven. He's already a great match. Yuri not getting any younger this year. And it's already good that someone wants you. How dare you still be picky? After saying that, she sent several contemptuous emojis in a row, then added, if you reject Gu Qinghai, let's just cut ties. I stared at my phone screen in slight surprise, a flicker of doubt crossing my mind. My past self must have been incredibly patient not to slap this illegitimate daughter who dared speak to me like that. Then I immediately understood. Previously, I was a spoiled young lady with no temper, doted on by my parents and untouched by hardships. It wasn't until after marriage, when I was forced to start a business with Gu Qinghai, that I toughened up and became the fiery President Lin. Naturally, my state of mind is different now. Watching Song Yu still spouting nonsense on the screen, I moved my fingers, blocked her decisively without hesitation, thought the matter would come to an end. Who would have thought that blind-eyed Song Yu would, at Saturday's cocktail party, publicly confront me about why I blocked her? At that moment, I was holding a wine glass and speaking with their family's eldest daughter. The Song family's eldest daughter frowned upon hearing Song Yu speak. The Song family is currently eager to collaborate with the Lin family. Even she herself has to force a smile when speaking to me. What on earth is this illegitimate child doing now? The crowd of onlookers grew larger as the Song family's eldest daughter scolded. What place do you have to speak in such a setting? Moreover, if someone blocked you, there must be a reason. Have you ever reflected on your own behavior? Before the illegitimate daughter could retort, I cut in. Speaking of which, I'd like to ask Miss Song, your family's upbringing can't be that poor, so how did you raise such an outrageous girl? She actually expected me, a young lady from a prominent family, to marry someone like Gu Qinghai, a down-and-out nobody. Even my marriage arrangements are subject to my parents' approval. Since when did Miss Song become so meddlesome? When she saw me arguing with Gu Qinghai, she even threatened to cut ties with me unless we reconciled. As I finished, the crowd erupted in mocking laughter, all ridiculing the illegitimate daughter for overestimating her importance. The Song family's eldest daughter flushed red and then paled with anger. Then she shot a glance at her assistant behind her. The assistant stepped forward and slapped Song Yu twice across the face. The eldest Miss Song smiled apologetically at me, saying, it's entirely due to the Song family's lax discipline that this farce occurred. Rest assured, Miss Lin, we'll take her back and give her a proper talking to. I looked at the disheveled Song Yu before me, her cheeks swollen high, recalling her glorious and untouchable demeanor in her previous life. I nodded in satisfaction. Song Yu was dragged by the servants and thrown into the car, to be sent back to the Song family after the banquet concluded. Meanwhile, I proceeded to discuss business with the eldest Miss Song. Although the current head of the Song family hasn't achieved any major accomplishments, they've done quite well in maintaining the family's legacy. There's still someone worth befriending. The next morning, my father and mother sat on the sofa with serious expressions. Seeing me come downstairs, my father cleared his throat and said, Yuzuki, starting today, you'll come to work at the company with me. Your mother and I have been overprotective of you before. Any stranger could easily deceive and take you away. Now, we should start training you like we would an heir. I had been longing for this opportunity, so I agreed immediately after father finished speaking. Without further questions, father instructed the driver to prepare another car. The Lin family is different from other wealthy families. Mother didn't choose the diplomatic wife route, instead joining the company alongside father after my birth, sharing equal equity. With both spouses working hard together, the Lin family flourished accordingly, becoming one of Beijing's rare families that consistently climbed the social ladder without decline. Even if I had foolishly married Gu Qinghai in my past life, my parents were no fools. According to my recollection, Gu Qinghai's true coldness toward me likely began when he heard me say my parents had already made plans for me. I am the sole heir of the Lin family trust. If I die, almost all the assets will be transferred to a designated foundation to protect endangered wildlife on Changbai Mountain from poaching. Upon joining the company, my father appointed me as the chairman's assistant. After shadowing my father nonstop for a week, I quickly familiarized myself with the company's basic structure since it's a joint leadership by the couple. There's no factional struggle within the company, everyone performs their own duties, and the salary package is commensurate with employees' efforts. With the experience of starting a business alone in my previous life, I basically grasped company matters instantly. Seeing my natural talent, my father immediately abandoned his initial thought of keeping me by his side on Friday afternoon. As soon as the appointment order naming me as Deputy General Manager was issued, I immediately assumed my new position, for while everything was peaceful on my side, Gu Qinghuai's situation was filled with gloom and despair. Without me, their financial benefactor, Gu's father was desperate to make a comeback. He immediately sent Jiang Yu out as a cash cow. At every high society banquet the Gu family could attend, Jiang Yu would be brought by Mr. Gu to toast each business magnate present. This explosive exclusive gossip came from my dear cousin, a fine young lady who utterly detested Jiang Yu. Back when Jiang Yu was trying to elevate her social status in their circle, she secretly smeared my cousin, her peer, countless times. Though my cousin retaliated in kind, the two became sworn enemies from then on. To get a close-up view of Jiang Yu's awkward situation, my cousin specially gave me an invitation to the weekend banquet. She wanted me to join her in watching the spectacle. Just thinking about Jiang Yu's arrogant demeanor in my past life fills me with malice. I'm no White Lotus protagonist, I'm just a petty person who loves to kick others when they're down, most skilled at reveling in my enemy's misfortunes. So that evening I made a grand entrance, dressed in the latest haute couture from the runway that made me look like the epitome of wealth and beauty, not to mention the priceless jewelry adorning me and a refined demeanor cultivated from being raised in an aristocratic family. The moment I stepped onto the red carpet, all the other minor celebrities instantly paled in comparison. The reporters' cameras all turned toward me. The host immediately put on an ingratiating smile when they saw me arrive, handing me a signing pen with both hands for an autograph. I overheard a junior reporter in the corner whispering to their colleague, "Who is that? Such grand presence." When she arrived, even the newly crowned best actress made way for her to take photos first. Their colleague quickly hushed. "You don't know, that's a genuine Beijing socialite, a true heiress." 60% of the celebrities at this gala are employees of her family's company, the questioning reporter gasped, then quickly shut their mouth before my gaze swept over them. That reporter wasn't wrong. Many actors and celebrities in the entertainment industry are indeed our family's employees. However, the Lin family's business empire extends far beyond just the entertainment industry. Finance, internet, computing, catering, culture. The Lin family has ventures in all these fields. Serving as my male escort was the renowned director who watched me grow up. He chatted with me as we walked into the inner venue together. Many familiar celebrities immediately swarmed around, engaging in conversation with the director. I, on the other hand, found my cousin, grabbed some food from the buffet area in the venue, and sat in a corner to eat. The people at the banquet all had different purposes. Business tycoons holding capital either chatted casually or exchanged the latest market trends and future industry policies amidst laughter and smiles. The celebrities' intentions are quite blatant. An accomplished veteran actor stands beside a familiar director, discussing the upcoming filming work. With just a few words, they secured a role that could make an unknown actor famous overnight. Yet more are those obscure but good-looking minor celebrities, constantly searching for targets on the scene. The entertainment industry is never short of beauties. At this time in my previous life, I got engaged and married to Gu Qinghuai. Gu Qinghuai said it was because our family had no power or influence. His younger sister Jiang Yu suffered constant bullying in the dance troupe. Jiang Yu now wants to switch careers and enter the entertainment industry, asking for my help. For this reason, I went to great lengths at the time to stop Jiang Yu from going to accompany wealthy sponsors for drinks. I forcefully got her, who wasn't skilled enough, into a dance variety show. Later, I also spent money on data manipulation and marketing for her. She was forcibly elevated to a height that didn't belong to her, despite being worlds apart from top dancers in terms of innate talent. In this lifetime, I simply smiled faintly. In this life, I didn't help her pull strings. She didn't even qualify for the preliminary auditions. Maybe I can only tag along to the cocktail party by mooching a ticket to accompany older men. As midnight approached, most of the overt business discussions had concluded. A small group of executives, directors, and celebrities left first, while the rest tacitly headed to the top floor. Exchanging glances with my cousin, we also stood up and waited by the elevator to go to the top floor. After all, we came here tonight specifically to see the excitement. How could we possibly miss the most thrilling part of the show? My cousin is delicately beautiful, with every smile and frown exuding the charming innocence of a young girl. As for me, I am striking and glamorous, with every gesture radiating an aura of decisive authority coupled with our exquisitely expensive evening gowns. We stood out from the crowd even more. The young nobleman beside me gulped and whispered to his companion, "Which noble family do these two beauties belong to? Their master must be quite the lucky man." Before he could finish, his companion immediately panicked and tried to hush him, but it was too late. The female bodyguard behind me strode forward and slapped the young nobleman twice across the face. Blood immediately gushed from his nose and mouth as he collapsed onto the ground. The minor celebrity in his arms let out a shriek and stumbled away in fright. I looked down at the disheveled nobleman with the same disdain one would show to trash. The banquet manager heard the commotion and hurried over, bowing and scraping to apologize to me. Then he escorted my cousin and me to the VIP elevator. My cousin snorted coldly. If it weren't for watching Jianyu make a fool of herself, I'd never come to such a disgusting place. I glanced at her with a smile and comforted her. Just think about how we'll soon see Jianyu humiliated. Doesn't that make it better? As I finished speaking, the elevator reached the top floor where a bowing attendant stood at the door. I casually picked up a glass of red wine and walked toward the venue. Compared to the cocktail party downstairs, the people at the upstairs party were more like beasts unleashing their primal instincts, greed, profit above all, and clear class divisions. The wealthy bosses were the center of attention, while their companions fawned over them, carefully currying favor with their benefactors among a crowd of good-looking celebrities. I also spotted the person we came to see tonight, Jianyu. Unlike the image we imagined of her being unyielding even unto death, vowing to remain chaste for Gu Qinghai, here, she was dressed lightly, leaning against a man in his 40s with coquettish laughter. The two were whispering, and occasionally I could hear Jianyu's deliberate coyness and laughter. I curled my lips. It seems exactly as I imagined. Jianyu was never an easy person to deal with. Poor Gu Qinghai, such a lovesick fool. Even his posthumous inheritance went to that wretched woman who knew she only saw him as a gullible fool and a backup option. Photography and recording were prohibited at the party. My cousin and I sat in a corner, listening with great interest to Jianyu's conversation with that wealthy businessman. At this party, Jianyu was just a minor internet celebrity. Her looks couldn't compare to those stunning celebrities, but as a dance major, her figure was truly 1 in 100. Seeing the wealthy businessman's gaze drawn by a passing celebrity, Jianyu immediately cooed, "Uncle, you're not allowed to look." Could her figure possibly compare to mine? As she spoke, her cousin sitting behind them made an exaggerated gagging expression. My eyes were filled with sarcasm. After all, Jianyu has built her online persona as the clear-headed female lead. In her videos, she advocates that women should earn their living through their own abilities. Any method relying on beauty and figure isn't sustainable. Girls should have self-respect and self-love. Watching Jianyu being manhandled before my eyes, I let out a cold laugh. Seems like you can't fully trust what internet celebrities say. After all, whether influencers are angels or demons behind the camera remains unknown. The party didn't end until late at night. The wealthy merchant dusted himself off and prepared to move to the hotel with Jianyu. The corners of my mouth curled slightly as I sent a message on my phone before leisurely getting up to leave with my cousin. In his past life, Gu Qinghai was deeply infatuated with Jianyu. How could I just stand by and watch Jianyu submit to someone else now? Of course, I had to let Gu Qinghai play the hero and save the beauty. 5. The Lin family's business ventures span a wide range. Luxury hotels are among them. After a drinking session, the wealthy businessman brought Jianyu to a 5-star hotel under the Lin Group for check-in. When she saw the hotel's name, a flicker of unease passed through Jianyu's eyes. Today, Gu Qinghai was conducting business negotiations nearby. Given his previous playboy habits, he would undoubtedly choose this hotel. Fortunately, they were on different floors, so there was no chance of running into each other. But before she could finish feeling relieved, the hotel manager apologetically informed the wealthy businessman, "Sir, there's an issue with the bathroom in your reserved room, and it's temporarily unavailable. We've upgraded your room for free. It still has the auspicious room number 1888. Would that be acceptable?" Upon hearing the room number 1888, the businessman's face lit up with joy, and he eagerly agreed. As the two headed upstairs, the manager finally came to the VIP lounge with great respect to report the completion of the task to me. I took a sip of the fine tea in my cup with a beaming smile. Next, watch me kill 2 birds with 1 stone and reap the benefits from others' conflict. I knew that Jianyu's initiative to seduce the sponsor must have been done under the implicit suggestion of Father Gu. After all, Mr. Gu recently thought he had discovered another industry trend and urgently needed a large sum of money to invest. Gu Qinghai had just finished paying off his father's debts and wouldn't spare a single penny more. Jianyu had grown tired of living in poverty, especially after witnessing the wealth of my Lin family. and was obsessed with climbing the social ladder, so the father and daughter hit it off immediately and quickly found a wealthy backer. As I looked through the materials prepared by my assistant, a faint smile flashed in my eyes, but they were too impatient and completely failed to notice this wealthy businessman is just a spineless man who rose to prominence through his wife, with an exceptionally domineering wife and children. According to the information I leaked, the wealthy wife will come to catch them in the act in half an hour. While waiting for the wealthy lady to arrive at the hotel, I got up and headed to the changing room, changed into the hotel attendant's uniform. In addition to the standard white shirt and black trousers, I deliberately pinned a thumb-sized brooch next to the name tag. The brooch contained a pinhole camera, allowing me to capture exciting moments while observing the scene. Half an hour later, the floor manager responsible for the 18th floor called urgently, said a group of people came up aggressively, swiping a room card to open room 1888. The leading socialite dragged out a barely clothed woman from the room. Now she's pulling her hair and slapping her face. I'll bring the manager upstairs right away. As soon as the elevator doors opened on the 18th floor, I heard sharp curses and a girl's crying in the hallway. The voices were accompanied by loud slaps. You shameless woman, so young yet already seducing married men. Today I'll teach you a proper lesson to keep you from straying down this wicked path. Someone, come and scar her face. With that, I quickly stepped forward, positioning myself at an angle where I could clearly see the noblewoman's face. This position not only provided the clearest view of the cheating scene unfolding in the corridor through the half-open door, one could still see the face of the trembling wealthy merchant, wrapped only in a towel, the manager, and I stood there, watching helplessly as the noblewoman's servant stepped forward and firmly gripped Jianyu's face. The next moment, disregarding Jianyu's struggles and pleas, the servant mercilessly slashed her face twice without hesitation. Blood splattered onto the carpet as Jianyu let out a wail, clutching her face and collapsing to the ground. Seeing the timing was ripe, a glint of amusement flashed in my eyes. What's so fun about just disfiguring Jiangyu now that Gu Qinghai is staying in room 1889? How could we not let him join in on such an exciting spectacle? But the soundproofing in 5-star hotels is excellent. No matter how loud the commotion in the hallway, it wouldn't reach the room. I turned my head and gave the manager beside me a look. The manager immediately understood and pretended to panic as he pushed through the crowd. When passing by room 1889, the master key at my waist silently pressed against the keypad lock. A soft sound. Gu Qinghai's door opened. The manager immediately stepped forward and whispered to the noblewoman, "Madam, the hotel is crowded and prying eyes are everywhere. It's not safe to stay long. We'll call 120 in 10 minutes at most," saying a woman fainted in the hallway from low blood sugar, her face scratched by a hairpin. "You and your people should hurry." The noblewoman, pleased by the manager's tact, nodded in satisfaction. Then she glared maliciously at Jiangyu, who was surrounded by the crowd, her clothes in tatters. Next, Jiangyu was destined to endure the most painful 10 minutes of her life. With Jiangyu's scream, the servant at the front had already taken action. They mercilessly yanked out a small clump of her hair. With such commotion, even someone sleeping like a log would be startled awake. The shriek slipped through the door crack and pierced Gu Qinghuai's ears. He rose impatiently, frowning as he pushed open the door, about to scold when a sentence drilled into his ears. "What are you hiding from, Miss Jiangyu? You volunteered to be the other woman back then, so why are you acting scared now that I've come knocking?" After speaking, Gu Qinghuai heard his younger sister's sobs. He yanked the door open instantly, only to see Jiangyu crouching naked in the hallway, being surrounded and slapped repeatedly. In his shock, Gu Qinghuai failed to notice me. Standing not far away, wearing a face mask, Jiangyu was forced to lift her head as someone yanked her hair, catching a glimpse of Gu Qinghuai's face in her peripheral vision. Instantly clinging to him like a lifeline, she cried out with hope in her eyes, "Brother, come save me quickly." Gu Qinghuai's pupils trembled violently. Just as he was about to speak, his business partner emerged from the room, looking at Jiangyu on the ground with a puzzled expression. "Qinghuai, is this your sister?" Hearing his friend's voice, Gu Qinghuai suddenly snapped out of his daze as if waking from a deep dream, staring at the disheveled, naked Jiangyu before him. Then I thought about my usual identity as a carefree young master. Gu Qinghuai gritted his teeth and pretended to sneer coldly. "How could my sister possibly be the kind of woman who actively becomes the other woman? You're insulting me." After speaking, under Jiangyu's shocked gaze, Gu Qinghuai patted his partner's shoulder and turned away first. "Going back to my room. People are watching the mistress get beaten, but I have a meeting tomorrow." 6. I stood coldly at the back of the crowd. I watched Jiangyu get beaten for a full 10 minutes. By the time the crowd dispersed, Jiangyu lay on the ground, covered in bruises. Apart from the facial wounds, the most severe injury was undoubtedly the leg fracture. That's because the manager had just whispered in the noblewoman's ear, "Madam, when you hit her, be careful of her legs. She's a dancer. Breaking her legs could cause trouble." The noblewoman's anger was instantly provoked. "What can a mere dancer do? I'm not afraid of some mistress. Beat her up." As soon as the servant finished speaking, the staff came down hard, striking Jiangyu's calf and shin bone, instantly bending them into a grotesque curve. Jiangyu let out a blood-curdling scream before completely losing consciousness. I turned and instructed the manager, "Call 120, and remember to send the bill to the GU residence." The manager nodded. I took out my phone and condescendingly took 2 photos of Jiangyu to send to my cousin. Happiness shared is happiness doubled. Good things are meant to be shared. Without her proud appearance and legs, Jiangyu would most likely never be able to turn her life around in this lifetime. I didn't come to the hotel just to laugh at Jiangyu's misfortune. Recently, the Lin Corporation has been bidding against the wealthy businessman who came to catch his cheating spouse, and the video footage I have of the affair is the best bargaining chip. After all, the public persona of that wealthy businessman is that of a filial, family-oriented, gentle and humble entrepreneur. The assistant sent me the documents for the upcoming bidding process. After I gave the final approval, we prepared to attend the bidding meeting with the team on Monday. I attach great importance to this bid, as it's the first major project I'll participate in since taking office. The wealthy merchant, relying on his status, only half-heartedly assigned a minor executive as the bid presenter during the tender meeting. The bid documents were also a complete mess, causing the leaders sitting across the table to shake their heads repeatedly. It was completely different from the Lin Group's approach. The outcome was undoubtedly predictable. The Lin family undoubtedly secured this project. Before leaving, that petty leader gave me a hostile look, then sneered and forced out a sentence through gritted teeth. "It seems the younger generation is truly formidable, Miss Lin." I smiled humbly, thinking to myself, I even have the VCR of your boss being caught in bed. Of course I'm formidable. Seeing my shameless behavior, the petty official was so angry his potbelly visibly swelled. He stormed off with his entourage in a huff. When I got home and told my father about it, he just waved his hand dismissively. "Nothing to be afraid of. That family is in complete chaos right now. Didn't he get caught cheating a while back?" Later, when he returned home, he was diagnosed with a venereal disease. His children seized the opportunity to try dividing up their father's assets. Now they're in the middle of a huge fight. My eyes widened instantly, and I gasped in surprise. Father sneered, "That shameless old lecher, still fooling around at his age, serves him right." Seeing the look of surprise and slight disappointment on my face, my father immediately caught on. "What? That old bastard got caught, and you actually seem a bit disappointed, embarrassed." I confessed to Dad about secretly photographing the tycoon's wife catching him in the act. A flicker of delight flashed in Dad's eyes. After praising me briefly, he said, "This scandal still happened at a hotel under our Lin Group's banner. When it blows up, we'll be their first suspect. Unless we're ready to burn bridges with that family, it's better to just use this to intimidate Jiangyu, not them, unless absolutely necessary." I nodded in understanding. "Leave room for reconciliation. As you may meet again someday." My father, afraid I might take things too hard, patted my shoulder and said, "But you did the right thing. Just remember to balance firmness with flexibility. Never push things to the extreme. Always leave some leeway. You're still young. I'll teach you these things gradually." 7. I initially thought the wealthy merchant would retaliate fiercely against me. Little did I know it was all thunder but no rain. Now that merchant is in the hospital praying to gods and Buddhas, just waiting for doctors to prolong his life. After taking over the project, I led the team to achieve significant results. The success of this project helped me establish my position within the company. At the group's quarterly review meeting, my father specifically praised the department I led. He credited me entirely for driving the department's profits to a record high this quarter. After the meeting ended, my father's assistant handed me a document. I opened it and took a look. It was a new project from a large company currently seeking collaboration, and it happened to align perfectly with my department, so it was assigned to us. But seeing the meaningful smile on my father's face as he left, I instinctively felt things weren't that simple. It wasn't until I received Gu Qinghuai's text message on my phone that I understood why I felt something was off. It was Gu Qinghuai inviting me out for coffee, and on my desk lay the documents my assistant had just delivered to me. On the competitor company's page, Gu Qinghuai's identity information was prominently displayed. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was my father testing me, probing to see if I still had lingering feelings for Gu Qinghuai. After work on Friday afternoon, I packed up my things and went to the cafe. Gu Qinghuai was sitting with his classmates chatting. discussing topics about me. Seeing how nervous Gu Qinghui looked, his classmate patted his shoulder and said with a laugh, "Don't worry, Lin Yuqing likes you so much, she'll definitely give you this business deal. If all else fails, just tell her that if she doesn't give it to you, you won't marry her. See what she does then." As soon as the words fell, I got up from the seat next to him, sneered, and slammed my bag on the bench. His classmate didn't expect me to be right beside him and was instantly mortified with embarrassment. But something even more embarrassing for him was about to happen. I used to like Gu Qinghui and went out of my way to protect his fragile self-esteem. I set aside my pride as a wealthy heiress, wearing cheap shirts worth just a few dozen yuan every day, circling around Gu Qinghui like a junior schoolgirl. So even though I was rich, no one really felt the impact of my wealth. But now, times have changed. Even the bag I casually tossed on the chair is a limited edition luxury piece without additional allocations. The market price reaches millions, yet remains unavailable despite the high valuation. Not to mention the watch and bracelet on my wrist, both bearing distinct brand signatures. I glanced lightly at Gu Qinghui's classmate and sneered, "Don't get cocky with me. Just yesterday, your uncle was toasting me at the banquet, begging me to go easy on your family, and today you're here playing the big shot. Are you trying to bankrupt your uncle's company?" Gu Qinghui's classmate immediately shut their mouth. After handling this matter, I crossed my arms and looked at Gu Qinghui with a provocative expression. "Go on, keep talking. I was wondering why you still shamelessly cling to me even after I called off the engagement. Turns out you just want me to hand over my business to you. Is this the only low-life trick you men know? How pathetic can you get?" As soon as she finished speaking, the two people opposite her flushed red as if slapped across the face. Gu Qinghui's classmate snapped sharply, "Lin Yuqing, if you don't want to do business, fine, but don't insult people here." I let out a cold laugh and gave him a merciless look. "Bai Yunjing, right, Gu Qinghui's close buddy from the upper bunk. No surprise you're cut from the same cloth. Not long ago, Gu Qinghui even talked about marrying off Jiangyu, the sister you've had a crush on for years. To you, you were overjoyed and already acting like you're part of the Gu family, and you yourself are a down-to-earth, hard-working young master with no worries about food or clothing. Quite a suitable match indeed. The Gu family has really put in great effort to find such a fine son-in-law like you." Gu Qinghui's expression suddenly changed upon hearing my words. The smile in my eyes deepened. "But do you know why you haven't even been able to see Jiangyu recently?" Gu Qinghui immediately stopped me upon seeing my meaningful smile. "Lin Yuqing, don't go too far." I slapped away his pointing finger and connected my phone to the cafe's projection screen. The video of Jiangyu kneeling naked on the hotel carpet being slapped began to play. I didn't even notice when the coffee shop had been cleared out by me. Apart from the three of us, there was only the owner standing behind the counter who didn't even look up. Bai Yunjing clearly saw the face of the person in the video, and his expression instantly became quite dramatic along with a woman's curses, sobs, and footsteps in the video. I leisurely tucked the stray hair behind my ear and explained kindly, "Previously, Jiangyu voluntarily became a rich businessman's mistress for money, only to be dragged off the hotel bed by his wife and beaten while having her hair pulled. Your good friend Gu Qinghui happened to be staying next door and even watched the whole scene, but obviously, he chose to betray his friend by not telling you, wanting you to be the one to pick up the pieces. However, Jiangyu's face is now disfigured, and her legs are broken, completely ending her career as a dancer. Now, are you still willing? Is your Bai family still willing to accept her? After all, she's a sister he's lived with day and night." Just as Gu Qinghui was about to stand up and argue, I pressed him back onto the stool with one sentence. "Oh, and here's some extra good news for you. The wealthy businessman Jiangyu was fooling around with was recently diagnosed with tertiary syphilis." My eyes curved into crescents. "Next, it'll be your turn." After saying that, I immediately got up and left, leaving the two of them entangled in the coffee shop. According to my speculation, we're all adults here. Where do all these pure love warriors come from? Needless to say about Gu Qinghui, Bai Yunjing's deep devotion to Jiangyu definitely goes beyond just dating and holding hands. But the most unfortunate thing is Bai Yunjing's family is in politics. He just passed the civil service exam and is now waiting for the medical checkup to secure his position. Even if syphilis is cured, it can still be detected in tests. Moreover, with the medical examination process imminent, it's too late for treatment now. For a family in politics, having a child involved in such a scandal would bring lifelong ridicule. His future is completely ruined. 15 minutes after I left the coffee shop owner called the police, reporting a violent fight in his store. The kind where people were beating each other to death. 8 Since that day we parted at the coffee shop, news came from the Bai family. Bai Yunjing, the second son of the Bai family, committed suicide the day before his physical examination. Immediately afterwards, news broke that the Bai and Gu families had severed ties. According to my father, who went to pay his condolences at the time, the Bai family was rather indifferent to Bai Yunjing's death. The eldest son of the Bai family didn't even shed a single tear, merely greeting guests with a cold expression. I let out a mocking laugh. This is a critical moment. If Bai Yunjing's scandal were exposed, the entire Bai family would surely face dire consequences. Therefore, sacrificing the pawn to save the king is the only choice. News from the Gu family soon followed. Gu Qinghuai was diagnosed. He had no mood to deal with company affairs anymore. The bidding matter was entirely entrusted to the partner. Although Gu Qinghuai's buddy was unreliable, the partner had genuine talent and knowledge. But even so, due to the incompetence of his subordinates, he became my defeated opponent. After the bidding concluded, I invited him to have a drink together at the dinner table. I smiled gently. Why don't you consider joining our company, where I could invest and collaborate with you? Let Gu Qinghuai get lost. In my past life, Gu Qinghuai and he parted ways early due to disagreements. He went abroad alone, caught the industry trend, and then rose rapidly, accumulated a considerable amount of capital in just a few short years. We bear no grudges against each other, so of course I must seize this opportunity to develop the Lin family business in this lifetime. The partner smiled faintly and readily agreed. After all, compared to Gu Qinghuai, with the ample financial resources and extensive connections of the Lin family behind me, there's no one like Gu's father to boss him around. He didn't share any particularly deep bond with Gu Qinghuai either. As fellow business people, they quickly reached an agreement. Gu Qinghuai, having outlived his usefulness, was simply cast aside. Just as the Gu family was in complete chaos, Jiang Yu was found to be pregnant with this child. Mr. Gu's petty schemes immediately resurfaced. He took Jiang Yu to the wealthy merchant's doorstep, wailing and demanding an explanation. But what he didn't know was that the power in the wealthy merchant's family had already changed hands. The daughter and son of that family somehow managed to split the shares equally. Then, with swift and decisive action, they sent their philandering father to a mental hospital. Upon hearing about the Gu family's actions in the wealthy merchant's household, a glint of interest flashed in their eyes. The Gu family is utterly foolish beyond belief. There's a reason why that wealthy merchant dares to play around so recklessly. A car accident over a decade ago left that wealthy merchant infertile. As for that bastard child in Jiang Yu's belly now, even I don't know who the father is. Gu Qinghuai's, Bai Yunjing's, these have nothing to do with me anymore. In the end, that family of clowns was driven out, and their reputation became notorious in the capital. The sharp nails dug into the flesh, causing a sharp, stinging pain. My father recognized my abilities and officially began grooming me as his successor. Meanwhile, the business with my partner's company was flourishing more and more. No wonder he was such an elite in his previous life, capable of building such vast fortunes this time around. I let him manage everything independently while I just handled investments, and we still made a killing. In his previous life, Gu Qinghuai jumped off a building because of stomach cancer. By the time he discovered it, it was already in the late stages. Judging by the current timeline, if I warn him early enough, he might still be saved. But why should I do that? I will make him lose all reputation and die in agony from illness, letting him taste what I endured in my past life. Spring passed and autumn came. Time slipped away swiftly. 2 years later, my father felt I had grown fully capable and decisively stepped back, passing the position of Lin Group's leader to me, and I lived up to expectations, seamlessly taking the helm of the Lin Group's massive enterprise. My future will be brilliantly bright. Story 2. In my previous life, Jiangqi had cancer, and everyone kept it from me. In order to set me free, he started having an affair, verbally humiliating me and subjecting me to cold violence. I couldn't stand it anymore and finally agreed to the divorce. However, his friend stood on the moral high ground and told me about his good intentions and the truth of his cancer. In a state of collapse, I committed suicide out of love for him. But after my death, Jiangqi was saved. I watched him crying bitterly in front of my tombstone. Then, persuaded by his friends, he pulled himself together and married the woman he had an affair with. When I returned to the day of the party, Jiangqi jokingly said, "Let's get a divorce." Instead of getting angry, I said calmly, "Sure." After I said this, the scene suddenly fell into an eerie silence in the large and luxurious private room. Only I continued to lower my head and eat the bird's nest in the bowl as if I didn't notice. The hand with which Jiangqi had been holding Ning Lan slowly loosened. His handsome face, which had jokingly said that he had fallen in love with someone else and wanted to divorce me, gradually became stiff and ugly. He seemed to have never expected that I would say such a thing, or rather, he knew how much I loved him, so even if it was just a seemingly joking remark, I would take it seriously, get angry, and then start making a scene. How could I say the word yes so calmly? His friends, who each had their own ulterior motives, looked at each other in surprise for a moment. The premeditated plan to watch me get angry, cry, and make a fool of myself shattered. The plot took a sharp 90-degree turn, catching these people off guard, but I wasn't very happy. I calmly scanned the faces of these people in front of me one by one. Finally, my gaze fixed on Ning Lan's beautiful and glamorous face. In my previous life, I regarded her as my best friend, but I had forgotten that she and Jingqi were close friends who grew up together since childhood. No matter how much she had protected me and how loyal she had seemed in normal times, at the crucial moment, the knife she stabbed into my back was that much deeper and more painful. Ning Lan's expression became a little unnatural under my gaze. She instinctively glanced at Jingqi, seeing that he was staring at me intently, with a dark face. His jaw clenched tightly, her eyes dimmed for a moment, then she immediately put on a hearty smile and came over to pull me. Come on, don't be angry. It was just that stupid idea of Zhou Su's. We were just kidding with you. I took a step back and avoided her outstretched hand. Without a smile on my face, I looked at Jingqi and said, but I'm not joking. Seriously, let's get a divorce. Jingqi, too. Ning Lan stood between me and Jingqi, looking at me and then at Jingqi, looking extremely at a loss. Her acting skills had always been very good. If I hadn't died once and my wandering soul had witnessed her kicking over my tombstone with a look of disgust, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known. Under Ning Lan's seemingly hearty and generous mature woman's appearance, there was a heart full of distortion and jealousy. It was rare for her to show such a helpless look, although I wasn't the cause of it. The blame from everyone present still pointed at me because of her. Zhou Su pushed his chair away and came over forcefully, shouting at me irritably and impatiently, Xie, don't go too far. We already said it was a joke. You have to make it so embarrassing. Can't you take a joke? This was really ironic. It was clearly them who were joking, and I was the victim, yet they turned around and blamed me for not being able to take a joke. Zhou Su always spoke bluntly and harshly. I used to think that was just his personality and that he was like this with everyone, so I tried to tolerate him as much as possible. Later, I realized that he was actually like this only towards me. As Jingqi's wife, I had never been accepted by his friends from beginning to end. I ignored what Zhou Su was saying, as if he were barking like a dog. My gaze remained fixed on Jingqi. When Jingqi saw that I showed no sign of backing down, he finally realized that what I had said was very likely serious. He was so angry that he laughed. He let out a cold sneer. Then, he grabbed Ning Lan's arm and pulled her into his arms. He stared at me fiercely and said in a vengeful tone, fine, you said it, don't regret it, go home and pack your things, we'll go get the divorce certificate tomorrow. After saying that, in front of everyone, he suddenly lowered his head and kissed Ning Lan's lips. It was a passionate and predatory kiss full of emotions, starting from their lips touching and gradually deepening with the sound of their tongues intertwining. The lighting overhead created just the right atmosphere. The woman's soft waist bent under the force, and the man's long fingers with distinct knuckles, gripping her slender neck, were like the most passionate scenes in a TV drama. I saw Ning Lan pretending to resist and pushing against Jingqi's chest a few times. When she couldn't push him away, she unconsciously reached up and wrapped her arms around his neck. I heard someone gasp in surprise, and then there were the sounds of people excitedly taking out their phones to take pictures. Since I was the closest to them, I could see the most indescribable details. I opened my pale and trembling lips, wanting to say something, but I didn't know what to say. It was just that a soft part of my heart was impacted. It was as if something very precious that I had hidden deep inside me had gently and silently shattered the moment Jingqi kissed someone else without caring about me. Then, I closed my eyes tightly, with a numb face, and turned around and walked out. 3. It started to drizzle outside. The sky and the earth were in a state of chaos. The streetlights were dim and yellow, and the branches of the trees by the roadside, shrouded in darkness, were waving menacingly in the cold wind. There was a couple standing beside me, whispering for a while. Then the boy took off his coat and covered the girl with it. The two of them clung to each other tightly and rushed into the rain together. I watched as they quickly got into the car parked by the roadside. I was in a trance. I felt as if I had forgotten something, but I couldn't remember it. It wasn't until I got home and started packing my things in the room that I suddenly found an umbrella at the bottom of the box. Immediately, my tears couldn't hold back and burst out. It was a transparent folding umbrella. The inside of the umbrella was filled with my favorite cartoon patterns drawn with a black marker pen. One day after school, it rained heavily. I was supposed to go home with my classmate, but then I saw my deskmate He was standing under the eaves, looking at the gray sky with a distant and lonely expression. He must have forgotten to bring an umbrella. However, there was no one in his family who could bring him an umbrella anymore. I suddenly felt a little sorry for him. After some hesitation, I finally stuffed the umbrella in my hand into his. Don't bother returning it. Consider it a thank you for teaching me how to do the math problems. I used a generous and indifferent gesture to hide my girlish feelings. And gave away my favorite umbrella. Then, without even daring to look at his reaction, I turned around and ran under my classmate's umbrella, urging her to leave quickly. My classmate laughed at my burning hot cheeks. I was so annoyed that I started fighting with her, but I couldn't help looking back through the rain under the umbrella. The boy was wearing a blue and white school uniform. His tall and slender figure stood out in the crowd, and he held the umbrella firmly in his hand. The rain was falling, and only the sound of my thumping heart could be heard. The next day, the rain continued. I can't remember what kind of mood I was in when I saw him again, but I still remember every subtle movement when he walked in through the back door of the classroom. The transparent cartoon umbrella didn't end up sitting in a row with the group of colorful umbrellas in the corner of the corridor. It was held in the boy's slender and fair hand, and the rain on the umbrella surface was wiped dry little by little with a soft handkerchief. Then the umbrella was smoothed out, folded up, and carefully put away in the desk, placed together with his textbooks. Jiangqi, who was 18 years old, looked up and met my gaze that I couldn't dodge in time. He smiled, and his eyebrows and eyes curved like a crescent moon. He said that he would cherish it for a lifetime. At that time, the thin layer of window paper between us hadn't been broken yet, but in the sound of our two young, suppressed, and violently beating hearts, we both knew that what he meant was that he would cherish me for a lifetime. The rain stopped. I dried my tears and calmed down my emotions. Then I picked up the umbrella that had been forgotten by its owner for many years. Its surface was old and yellowed, the cartoon drawings were blurred, and the frame had long since rusted and decayed, emitting a bad smell of deterioration. I looked at it and sat by the bed all night without sleeping, facing the night. I don't know how long it took, but the night faded away. A ray of dawn broke through the clouds, casting my figure in sharp black and white contrast. I moved my cold and stiff hands and feet, stood up, picked up the old umbrella, and threw it into the trash can. Then, I dialed Jiangqi's phone number. The summer rain in my youth should come to an end, for the phone rang many times before it was finally answered. But what came into my ears was a lazy female voice, as if she had just woken up. "Hello, who is this?" She then yawned, but in my silence like still water, it seemed a bit deliberate. After a while, Ning Lan's voice sounded again. She said in a low voice, with a bit of apology and embarrassment, "I took the wrong phone. Wait a moment, I'll wake Qi up." "No need," I interrupted her. Then I said calmly, "Please tell him that I've prepared all the materials. Let's meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 3 p.m. Without giving the other side a chance to react, I hung up the phone directly. I hadn't eaten anything from last night until now, but I felt very nauseous and wanted to vomit. What loving me, what never regretting the deep affection. In the end, he could sleep with someone else in the blink of an eye. No matter what the reason is, the person who is going to cheat will still cheat in the end. I remembered that in my previous life, after I accidentally discovered this matter, I was so heartbroken that I almost fainted. I lost all my reason and questioned the two of them like a shrew. As a result, Ning Lan had an apologetic look on her face, but she said it was a misunderstanding, an accident, and hoped that I wouldn't blame Jiangqi. And Jiangqi simply didn't defend himself at all. He let me cry, make a scene, and question him about whether what he had said before still counted. He just remained silent, as if he had some unspeakable difficulties. He looked like he had grievances, had endured a lot, but didn't say anything. In the end, everyone took Jiangqi's side. They said he had his reasons, he didn't do it on purpose, and I shouldn't blame him like this. They were the ones who did it, but I was the one who was wrong. He was so calm that I looked like a madman. It made me start to doubt myself. Was I really making too much of a scene? Was it my fault that I shouldn't have made unfounded accusations and slandered the pure friendship between him and Ning Lan for so many years? That was why Jiangqi acted on impulse and simply confirmed the already ambiguous relationship with Ning Lan. I was in a daze and finally agreed to the divorce. But after Jiangqi handed me the divorce agreement, his condition worsened when he went back. Zhou Su and the others seemed to be unable to stand it any longer and rushed in front of me to scold me, saying that I had stimulated him. He asked me if I knew that Jiangqi had done all this out of revenge just to not drag me down. Jiangqi and I were deskmates in our youth and entered marriage together from school. Jiangqi's parents had both passed away. I was his only family member. He knew that no matter what I would never leave him, so he chose this extreme way to drive me away. It was not easy for me to accept the reality that he had an affair and no longer loved me, but Josoo and the others said that he had hurt me like this because he loved me too much originally. Jingchi could have lived for 2 more years now. Because I had made too much of a scene, his condition suddenly deteriorated. It was all my fault. I only had one mouth and couldn't argue with a group of them. In the end, I completely collapsed mentally after taking a look at Jingchi, who was unconscious in the intensive care unit. I rushed to the rooftop of the hospital and jumped off. Thinking about it now, I was really stupid. Given a second chance, I choose to set myself free and let go of everything in the past. However, I waited at the Civil Affairs Bureau for a long time. It was not until the staff got off work that Jingchi finally showed up. 5. I wasn't feeling well and only woke up half an hour ago. Before I could ask him, Jingchi took the initiative to explain. His breathing was uneven, and the collar of his shirt under the long trench coat was slightly messy. He didn't even have time to tidy his hair, which was fluffy and sticking up, as if he had just crawled out of bed. He looked at the already closed Civil Affairs Bureau, exhaled a breath. I couldn't tell if he was sighing or relieved. Then he turned to me coldly and said, "Let's make another appointment for a different time." There was no other way. I told him to contact me directly when he was free, and then I didn't want to say anything more and turned to leave, but Jingchi suddenly said, "In the morning, you called me," and Lanlan answered, "What did she say to you?" I was inexplicably angry at his probing tone. The resentment that had been building up in my chest for a long time suddenly erupted. I turned around and sneered at him, "Aren't you two lying in the same bed? Don't you know what she said?" Jingchi paused. To my surprise, his expression suddenly softened like the melting of spring snow. It was as if he had confirmed something. He truly let out a sigh of relief. Rarely did he explain to me in a softened tone, "You misunderstood. I drank too much last night, and she sent me home. Since I wasn't feeling well, she stayed to take care of me because she was worried." Leaving aside how ridiculous his words sounded, given our current relationship, I didn't know why he still felt the need to explain this to me, but soon, I understood. Right in front of me, Jingchi suddenly coughed, and his face instantly turned a little pale. His handsome eyebrows furrowed tightly, as if he was in some pain, and he coughed several more times in succession. I couldn't tell if he was faking it or if it was real. Anyway, it had nothing to do with me. I turned around and left. There were rapid footsteps behind me, and Jingchi grabbed my arm. His face was pale and ugly, and his jaw was tightly clenched. He almost gritted his teeth and said, "I said I wasn't feeling well. Don't you care at all?" I knew he was sick, and it was a serious illness, but so what? I moved my arm and frowned, saying, "Let go." Instead of letting go, Jingchi tightened his grip on me, and his expression turned extremely bad. It was he who wanted to divorce me. Now that I readily agreed to the divorce, he was unhappy again. Jingchi stared at me fiercely for a while, then suddenly flung my hand away. He coughed violently and said in a heavy tone, "Fine. I'll let you go." He suppressed his anger, as if there was an indescribable pain in his heart. Without saying a word, I lifted my leg and walked away, but suddenly, there was a loud noise behind me. Jingchi fainted. I quickly called an ambulance and rushed him to the hospital urgently. After a moment of hesitation, I called Ning Lan anyway. After divorcing me, Jingchi would marry her sooner or later. It wasn't appropriate for me, a soon-to-be ex-wife, to stay here. Upon hearing the news, Ning Lan said nothing and quickly rushed to the hospital. Josoo came with her. I stood up from the corridor bench and was about to tell them that Jingchi had been sent for emergency treatment. Then I saw Ning Lan rushing up to me with a cold face. Suddenly, she raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. I was stunned. I heard Ning Lan say to me in an unprecedentedly cold and hateful tone, "You're such a jinx. Are you only going to be satisfied when you've killed him?" 6. I touched my numb cheek on the side that had been slapped, feeling the sharp ringing in my ears. I raised my head and was about to fight back. However, Josoo was quick and stepped forward to give me a hard push, knocking me to the ground. He stood in front of Ning Lan and looked down at me. He angrily scolded, "You still have the guts to fight back. Try hitting me." I propped myself up on the cold ground with my hands, trembling with anger. Just then, the light in the emergency room went out, and the doctor came out. Ning Lan couldn't be bothered to settle the score with me and immediately rushed forward. Josoo followed closely behind, but as he passed by me, he paused. Then, the expensive Italian handmade leather shoes on his feet stepped hard on the back of my hand that was propped on the ground. He was over 1.8 meters tall with firm muscles all over his body, and he almost crushed me with his entire weight. I cried out in pain and tears welled up in my eyes involuntarily. I looked up and glared at him, but I saw him standing under the ceiling light in the corridor, his silhouette blurred, with an extremely vicious sneer on his face. "If you have the guts, call the police." Like the breath of a devil, he taunted me silently with his lips. In an instant, I felt as if I had been dragged back into that dark period of my previous life when I was morally bullied and mentally collapsed. I felt as if icy cold water had been poured over my head, making me feel cold from head to toe. The thought of calling the police, which I had originally had, instantly vanished like ashes. I suddenly remembered that Zhou Su's family was extremely powerful. Calling the police was no different from directly calling Zhou Su and accusing him of the fact that he had bullied me. What else could I get besides a bout of ridicule? Previously, he might have been skeptical of Jiangqi, and even when joking with me, he didn't dare to go too far. But now that my relationship with Jiangqi had completely broken down, he no longer concealed his hostility towards me. I couldn't figure it out before. Why did he hate me so much? But now I knew he, Zhou Su, was just a lackey of Ning Lan. Since Ning Lan liked Jiangqi, he followed Jiangqi's lead. Since Ning Lan hated me, he hated me to the bone. I sat on the ground for a while, and when the pain subsided and my hands and feet regained their feeling, I stood up. Without looking back, I left in a hurry, eager to escape. I called a moving company, packed all my luggage, and left the most prosperous city center. I returned to the old house in the suburbs. Pushing open the door, there was a boring period drama playing on the TV. There was a musty and old smell in the house. The old woman in the wheelchair, who was dozing on the balcony, heard the commotion and lifted her dull and drooping eyelids. Seeing me walking in with large and small bags of luggage, as if she had expected it, she twitched the corners of her mouth and asked me mockingly and triumphantly, "Look, what did I say? Were you kicked out?" 7. I ignored her as if I hadn't heard her and silently packed my luggage. My mother straightened up in the wheelchair and shakily picked up her reading glasses and put them on. She didn't ask anything and didn't care about anything. She just started eagerly promoting the son of the neighbor downstairs to me again. "I told you long ago not to aim too high. Why would a rich person take a fancy to you? You have neither a good chest nor a good butt. Now, you've been played by him for a few years and been kicked out just like that." I thought that G guy wasn't a good person from the start. "Fortunately, you two don't have children, and you can still get married. I'll call Aunt Sue to see if her son is at home. Stop packing and hurry up and dress up to meet him." She searched for the numbers one by one on the senior mobile phone. I angrily threw my clothes into the suitcase and said unbearably, "What, can't I live without a man? If you like Aunt Sue's son so much, why don't you marry him? You keep saying meet him every time we talk. People who don't know might think he's so great. I just want to ask, has he gotten out of prison yet? You're introducing a man like this, who messes around outside and doesn't have a proper job, to me. Am I really your daughter?" My mother's face immediately darkened, and her eyes were so fierce that it seemed as if she wanted to swallow me alive. She scolded, "It's already good that he doesn't mind you being divorced. You're still being picky. If you keep being picky, no one will want you. If you don't get married, do you want to drag me down for the rest of my life?" I felt a lump in my throat, unable to swallow it or spit it out. I was almost on the verge of depression. There was no reasoning with her at all. She wouldn't listen to anything. Her old and decayed concepts had already penetrated deep into her bones. Even her own flesh and blood had to make concessions for it. I simply stopped packing my luggage, stuffed everything into my room, and closed the door. "I won't drag you down. I'll move out in a few days." I heard the sound of the wheelchair rolling outside. Then there was a violent knocking on the door. My mother angrily cursed me, saying that I had grown too bold and was rebelling. She said, "Even if you move out, you still have to go on a blind date for me. Your divorce has already embarrassed me enough. Do you want me to lose face in front of the neighbors? Besides, what's wrong with little Sue? Don't listen to others' rumors. I'm your mother. Would I harm you?" I found earplugs and stuffed them into my ears. Then I started looking for rental houses on my phone. This home was still the same as before. Staying here for even a second more made me feel suffocated. I had thought that as long as I found a place to hide, and after Jiangqi woke up and we got divorced, my world would be peaceful. But things didn't turn out as I expected. After another time of not being able to eat and vomiting in the bathroom, I held a pregnancy test stick and stared at the 2 red lines on it, lost in a daze. 8. At this time in my previous life, I was still having crazy arguments with Jiangqi. At that time, I was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Because of the matter between him and Ning Lan, I was suspicious all day long. I didn't notice the abnormalities in my body at all in this life. In just a few days, I had decided to divorce Jiangqi, and his condition had deteriorated earlier, and he had been admitted to the hospital. I didn't stay in the hospital and left directly. So, Ning Lan and the others didn't have the opportunity to tell me the truth about Jiangqi's cancer and use this matter to fiercely besiege me. As a result, I accidentally discovered that I was pregnant, that is to say, when I died in my previous life, I was also pregnant with a baby in my belly. It was the death of both the mother and the child. I pressed my forehead against the mirror in front of the sink and closed my eyes, unable to express the sadness and pain in my heart. But when I opened my eyes again, tightly pursed my pale lips, and looked at myself in the mirror, I knew that I couldn't keep this child. It had come at the wrong time. I still had a tough battle to fight with Jingqi and the others, and I simply didn't have the ability to take care of it. I stroked my belly, and a plan gradually took shape in my heart. Even though my relationship with Jingqi was currently tense, after all these years of affection, it wasn't so easy for him to let go as long as he still cared. Then the role of this child that was destined not to be kept could be maximized. I let out a sigh and softly said sorry to the baby. The next morning, I tiptoed out of the room, originally planning to sneak out, but I didn't expect that my mother got up so early. She was still sitting on that small balcony. The morning light was faint outside, making it impossible to see her expression clearly at the moment. Her voice was faint, like that of a ghost. Getting up so early to meet which other man? I felt very uncomfortable hearing this and retorted, anyway, it's not to meet your little Sue. Unexpectedly, this time, she didn't argue with me. Instead, she said to me softly, Mom has already inquired for you. Little Sue will be back in a few days. You should go and meet him. With a click, I closed the door. I didn't bother to listen to what she said next. It was probably the same old story. I went to the hospital where Jingqi was admitted, but I didn't directly go to his ward to visit him. Instead, I hid in the dark and observed. Jingqi had already woken up. All day long, Ning Lan stayed by his side. Zhou couldn't stay in the ward for long. After a while, he would come out and go to the stairwell to smoke a depressed cigarette, but he was reluctant to leave. He could only, over and over again, like self-torture, watch the person he loved show tender concern for his best brother. At this moment, I walked down the stairs step by step, hearing the noise. Zhou looked up, seeing that it was me. Zhou immediately frowned. He exhaled a smoke ring and said in an unfriendly tone, What are you doing here? Didn't you learn your lesson last time? I stared at him and suddenly smiled. I said, How could a young lady like Ning Lan be so cheap and know she's the mistress but still act as one? Zhou's face instantly changed. He pointed at me, his expression fierce, and angrily said, Watch your mouth. I raised my eyebrows and quietly approached him. I continued, I've changed my mind. I'm not going to divorce Jingqi. This way, she will never have the chance to take my place, but a loose woman like her is a perfect match for a shameless dog like you who licks others' boots. Zhou cursed, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He habitually gave me a hard push. He was about to strike again, but he didn't expect that I missed a step and rolled down the stairs directly. Zhou was stunned for a moment, frowned, and stood on the high ground, looking down at me coldly, until I curled up, covered my stomach, and said with a pale and trembling face, My baby. Zhou's fingertips suddenly trembled, and the cigarette fell from his hand. His entire face instantly turned pale with shock. 9. Despite seeking medical treatment in time, the baby couldn't be saved. This was inevitable. After all, just in case, I had taken the abortion pill before coming. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Jingqi, wearing a hospital gown and with red eyes, sitting by my side. When he saw that I had woken up, he immediately sat up straight and wanted to hold my hand, but halfway through extending his hand, he let it drop dejectedly. His eyes were a little moist, and he said to me in a hoarse voice, The baby is gone. We had always wanted to have a child of our own. For this reason, Jingqi had started preparing for pregnancy a long time ago, reducing his company's social engagements, quitting smoking and drinking, and having regular physical examinations. It was through this examination that the problem was found. I showed a shocked and sad expression. As our eyes met, tears rolled down my cheeks. Noticing Zhou standing in the corner with his head down and not saying a word, I raised my finger, pointed at him, and said with a sobbing voice and resentment, It was him. He pushed me down the stairs. The incident happened so suddenly that everyone was caught off guard. Now that Jingqi knew the truth of the loss of the baby, he turned his head to look at Zhou. Finding it almost unbelievable, Zhou opened his mouth but couldn't defend himself. After all, even if what I said was unpleasant, the fact that he had laid hands on me was undeniable. The next second, Jingqi stood up and rushed forward, punching Zhou and knocking his head aside. He grabbed Zhou's collar tightly, furious, and roared at him, Are you crazy? She's my wife. That was my baby. The two of them fought fiercely. Basically, Zhou was the one getting beaten, and he didn't dare to fight back. It wasn't until Ning Lan came to break up the fight and was pushed hard by Jingqi that Zhou lost his temper and counterattacked. What about Ning Lan? What on earth do you take her for? the air in the ward instantly became stagnant. Jiangqi looked at me, lying on the hospital bed, weak from the pain of losing the baby. He calmed down his rapid breathing. He coughed and suppressed it again. Ning Lan felt sorry for him and wanted to step forward to soothe his back, but he avoided her. It was such a similar scene, but this time, Jiangqi said in a deep voice, I have always only regarded Ning Lan as a friend. As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Lan took a stunned step back and looked at him with disappointment and pain. Zhou Su cursed, pushed him aside forcefully, and dragged Ning Lan out of the ward. I watched as Jiangqi called the nurse and asked to add a hospital bed beside mine. He wanted to move over and stay by my side. It was as if everything had returned to the beginning. He put away his thorns, his sarcasm and hurt, and revealed the true feelings of loving me. He said that even though the person was Zhou Su, since he had hurt me, he would definitely avenge me and our baby. Hearing these words, my heart couldn't help but tremble, but just as my emotions were slightly softening, I suddenly heard a strange mechanical voice, detected a change in conditions. The current strategy time is shortened. The host is requested to complete the task of winning over the White Moonlight ex-wife within 1 month. If within 1 month, the White Moonlight ex-wife is not willing to sacrifice herself, the task will fail, and the host will lose the protagonist halo and stay in this world forever. Jiangqi, who was holding my cold hand and gently stroking it, suddenly stopped his comforting movement. I was also suddenly stunned. 10. There has been a change in the conditions, Jiangqi murmured in a low voice. He seemed a bit puzzled, but immediately, he keenly noticed that something was wrong with me. He lifted his eyelids, and his deep eyes locked onto me tightly. He smiled and said gently, what's the matter, baby? This call a baby was strange. Connecting it to that strange voice just now, it was hard for me not to feel wary. I pulled my hand back from his palm. I met his inquiring gaze. I hesitated for a moment, then lowered my eyes and said in a low voice, I'm tired and want to take a rest for a while. Jiangqi stared at me for a while longer. Seeing that I really looked tired, he finally felt at ease. He gently covered me with the quilt and thoughtfully drew the curtains. From that day on, Jiangqi moved into the same ward as me. He was a patient himself, yet he took care of me personally several times. The nurse wanted to persuade him and tell me about his condition, but Jiangqi interrupted her. He clearly seemed to be hiding something from me and was being incredibly nice to me. It was as if the person who had deeply kissed Ning Lan in front of me some time ago and told me not to regret it wasn't him. If I didn't know there was something wrong with him, I might have thought I had some kind of schizophrenia. I prudently chose to stay put and maintained an indifferent attitude towards him. Finally, one night, I got the answer I wanted. At night, it was dark and quiet all around. Jiangqi thought I was asleep and got up to go to the balcony to smoke. I heard that strange voice again. Jiangqi talked to it, and his tone seemed a bit anxious. He asked, System, what is Xia Qingyu's current love value for me? The system replied, 61%. Jiangqi clicked his tongue heavily. He said with chagrin, no wonder she's been like a different person since I proposed the divorce. It seems I was too hasty. After a moment of silence, Jiangqi said in a low voice, that idiot Zhou Su, I don't know what he did to her behind my back. She even gave up the baby just to use me for revenge. My heart jolted in fear. So he had seen through it all. The system suddenly reminded, host, there are only 25 days left for the task. Jiangqi snuffed out the cigarette butt and said in a deep voice, I know, don't rush me. He started turning around and walking back into the ward. Obviously, the only sound in the room was his footsteps, but his voice rang clearly in my ears at the same time. The female lead and the male supporting character are both unreliable. I have to do it myself. I built an airtight basement at home. I have plenty of ways to make her willingly die for me. Oh, by the way, if she's afraid of pain and doesn't dare to commit suicide if I kill her with my own hands, will the task be considered completed? I heard the sound of the quilt being lifted beside me. Then, the bed sank with a creaking sound. The voice of the system also seemed to be ringing right inside my head. It said, yes 11. Jiangqi took away my phone. Normally, he wouldn't let me touch it on the grounds that he wanted me to have a good rest until the next day. My phone suddenly rang a few times. Someone had sent me a message. Jiangqi had been peeling fruit. Hearing the sound, he picked up my phone and took a look. He raised his head and suddenly asked me with a half smile, wife, who is brother Su, why did he suddenly ask you to meet? It seems you've never mentioned him to me. I was startled, but I firmly suppressed my expression and calmly reached out my hand to him. He's my cousin. We have a good relationship in the family. He moved to another place a few years ago, and we've had less contact, so I never told you about him. I guess he's stopping by to see my mom on his way back to our hometown. After hearing this, Jiangqi didn't suspect anything. He knew how complicated my relationship with my mom was and also knew what a futile and face-saving person my mom was if I didn't reply to my relative's message. I'm afraid my mom would call and start scolding me in the next second. The swear words she used were as unpleasant as they could be. Jiangqi had been scolded by her and still regarded her with great caution, so without asking any more questions, he directly returned the phone to me. I quickly read the message. Brother Su, where are you? Brother Su. Address: Brother Su, come and meet me immediately. While Jiangqi got up to wash his hands, I quickly sent him 2 addresses, which were the hospital and Jiangqi's home respectively. Brother Su, me, save me. After confirming that he had seen it, I immediately deleted these 3 messages. Then I sent some unimportant content, roughly saying that I had quarreled with my mom and didn't want to go home, and I was too lazy to look for him, so I told him to go and have fun on his own. It was very much like a conversation between siblings, and Su Lingzhou's way of speaking hadn't changed at all since he was a child. Besides sending question marks, he just greeted me. He asked me if I was crazy. I didn't reply to him anymore, because a pale and slender hand took the phone away from me. Jiangqi scanned through the messages we had sent line by line and gave a soft laugh, but he didn't return the phone to me. Instead, he turned it off directly. Alright, we've said what we needed to say, you can rest for a while longer. Later, the driver will come to pick us up and take us home. I clenched my hand hidden under the quilt and asked him in a flat tone, is your illness cured? Jiangqi smiled ambiguously and said, I can also recuperate at home. This meant there was no room for doubt. Time was running out. Once I went home with him, my chance of escaping again would be very slim, so while he left the ward for a moment, I took the risk of getting out of bed and running outside directly, but I never expected that Jiangqi hadn't left at all. As soon as I opened the door, I bumped straight into Jiangqi's chest, who was waiting for me at the door. He suddenly grabbed my wrist forcefully. He sneered and said, so you can really hear the voice of the system. 12 an hour later, I was locked up in the underground prison cage that Jiangqi had carefully built, thinking that now, my only hope was actually that unreliable neighbor brother whom I hadn't seen for years. I felt a bit desperate. There were some uncommon characters in the address. Could he recognize them? I should have just taken a chance and called the police the moment I got the phone. In my impression, Su Lingzhou never studied hard and didn't behave well since he was a child. He was a very prominent troublemaker. He was 5 years older than me when I was still a well-behaved primary school student carrying a school bag. He had already started hanging out with people in society, fighting everywhere and extorting protection money. Because our mothers had a good relationship, he somewhat protected me. Once, I was robbed of my pocket money by a small hoodlum who was extorting protection money. Su Lingzhou picked up a stick and chased the other person for 2 li. In the end, he not only got my money back but also took all the money the hoodlum had extorted and bought me candies with it. Later, I was admitted to a key high school and met Jiangqi while he failed the college entrance examination and chose to drop out and go out to work. We never contacted each other again after that. The rumors I occasionally heard about him were all bad, things like bullying girls and making them have abortions, getting addicted to gambling and always asking for money from home, getting into trouble outside and being arrested and sent to prison. The image of that childish but protective big brother in my memory became more and more blurred. Even when my mom mentioned him and said she wanted me to go on a blind date with him, my first reaction was also one of resistance and disgust. How could I pin my hope of escape on him? I moved my limbs, and the chain tied to the head of the bed immediately made a clear and eerie sound, echoing infinitely in the dim and enclosed basement. Before the sound of the chain died down, there was another steady sound of footsteps at the only exit of the basement. Jiangqi had changed into a set of home clothes. The soft beige sweater and gray casual trousers outlined his figure like a pile of jade. There was a faint smile on his lips, and the stray strands of hair on his forehead covered the sharpness of his eyes and eyebrows, making him look very gentle and harmless. But such a person wanted to kill me. He pulled over the only chair in the room and sat by my bedside. Then, he placed the thing in his hand on me. It was something he had rummaged out of my bag, a divorce agreement. My signature was already on it. Jiangqi looked at me, and his eyes seemed a bit sad. Still smiling, he said to me, you have a bad temper and are stubborn. Before seeing this divorce agreement, I always thought that you agreeing to divorce me was just out of anger. Why, wife, do you really want to part with me? As I listened, I just felt it was incredibly absurd and ridiculous. It was as if I was meeting the person in front of me for the first time. I stared at him and said word by word, you're going to kill me. And you're still asking me if I want to part with you. Jiangqi's expression didn't change, and he could even explain. He said, you heard it too. This is a task I must complete, but after everything is done, I will get a chance to save someone. He looked at me steadily and promised, I won't let you die, Even if the female lead in this world is Ning Lan, the only person I love is you. You don't believe me." It wasn't that I didn't believe him, rather, I didn't believe a single word. Did he still think I was an ignorant girl in my late teens who was easily deceived? Jiangqi let out a sigh. He said regretfully, "I really love you, but if you insist on going against me, I'll have to use more cruel means to achieve my goal." 13. From that day on, Jiangqi suddenly disappeared. There were footsteps on the steps again. A familiar man slowly walked in. It was Zhou Su. His eyes were blank, unable to focus, and his body movements were also a bit stiff. It was as if he was being controlled, but his movements of using the small knife in his hand to cut my skin inch by inch were extremely skillful. When I was screaming and struggling in pain and curled up in the corner in fear to avoid him, I suddenly understood Jiangqi's intention. He used that thing called the system to detect the person I hated and feared the most deep in my heart. It was Zhou Su, so he chose to let Zhou Su torture me. Just like in my previous life, he pushed me to the point of complete mental breakdown. After that, even if I knew clearly that Jiangqi was the mastermind, I would uncontrollably pray for his appearance to save me. Jiangqi knew me too well. We were classmates for 3 years, in love for 7 years, and got married right after graduating from university. To be a bit crazy, he even counted every single hair on my head one by one with a subtle movement of mine. He would know what I was thinking. He and Zhou Su played the good cop and the bad cop, taking turns to wear down my psychological defenses bit by bit. He didn't show up, but every time I woke up after being tortured, I could see an item related to him that appeared in the room. More or less, it forced me to recall the beautiful memories I had with him when I was in pain. One day, I opened my eyes again, but I didn't see that devil Zhou Su. Instead, there was a cute doll placed by the bedside. There was also a note with neat and sharp handwriting that read, "How about having another baby? Happy face." The bright red blood flowed down my arm and soaked the already mottled and stinking bedsheet. My long hair was in a mess, my eyes were scarlet and swollen, and I stared fixedly at those words and the smiling symbol at the end. The last string that had been in my mind suddenly snapped with a sound of collapse. Ah, bang. The door above was kicked open violently. Someone took 3 steps at a time and jumped down the steps. "Sister." The scream stopped abruptly. I stared blankly at a man with a crew cut, wearing short boots and a black leather jacket, extremely tall, with handsome eyes and eyebrows but a fierce look, appearing in this turbid and dark basement. He was also taken aback when he saw my current appearance. Then, he gritted his teeth, took off his coat, carefully wrapped me in it, and said angrily, "Don't be afraid, brother will take you away." Click, the bullet was chambered behind Su Lingzhou. Jiangqi expressionlessly raised his pistol and aimed it at the back of his head. Su Lingzhou paused for a moment but didn't stop. He picked me up horizontally, turned around, and confronted Jiangqi directly. Without any fear, he stared at Jiangqi and said in a deep voice, "Do you think I came alone? I'll only say this once, get out of the way." Jiangqi didn't move at all. He knew the matter had been exposed, but he wasn't worried at all. He sneered and said, "She's my legal wife. The intimacy between us as husband and wife is none of the police's business. Even if they come, no one can take her away from me." Su Lingzhou was shocked by his brazenness. He tightened his arms around me slightly and gritted his teeth, saying, "Intimacy? You've heard her like this. What the hell kind of intimacy is that?" Seeing that the situation was at a standstill and Jiangqi refused to budge no matter what, Su Lingzhou forcefully suppressed his anger and coldly revealed a piece of news. It was like a thunderclap out of the blue, making my scattered consciousness condense into a line in an instant, as if pricked by a needle. "If you still consider her your wife, let us go. Her mother is dying. You should at least let them, mother and daughter, meet for the last time." 14. Speaking of my mom, she always cared a lot about what the neighbors thought of us, but actually, except for Aunt Sue downstairs, she didn't have any friends at all. She was talkative, loved to scold people, and her weathered face was always pulled down, full of bitterness and hatred. She liked to complain to everyone she met, so no one liked to stay with her. But according to the elders, she wasn't like this when she was young. When she was young, she loved to laugh, was lively and cheerful, and could make friends wherever she went. Unfortunately, she had bad judgment and found a very bad man. Since then, everything changed. My mom's leg was crippled by that man. The pair of agile and good legs that could originally walk dozens of li on foot became shaky even when going up a flight of stairs. She tried to fight back, but in the end, she was beaten even more severely, and later she didn't dare to fight back anymore. I was in junior high school at that time, in the rebellious stage, seeing her wiping tears in the room every day in a fit of anger. I told her that she might as well divorce that man. As a result, she slapped me. What did she say? She said that no matter what, that was my father. I was angry and sad. I felt that they were one willing to hit and the other willing to be hit. and I was really out of my mind to care about her, but I never expected that my mother, such a futile, ignorant, and useless woman, would have the guts to kill someone. The person she killed was my father, who she often taught me was the head of our family. The police arrived quickly, and the surrounding alleys were crowded with people, but she wasn't taken to prison because she had a mental illness. Even I was surprised by this matter. I watched as she took out stacks of medical diagnosis certificates, and on each piece of paper, there were official seals from provincial and municipal hospitals. The policemen looked at each other in dismay. My mother, on the other hand, had an unusually calm expression. Only I stared at the dates on those papers for a long, long time, stunned. Since then, the neighbors have avoided us, mother and daughter. They said that it must be because my mother was unfaithful and was caught by my father, so she became furious and had the intention to kill. Otherwise, why had she endured being beaten for so many years? But this time she resisted so fiercely they were afraid of her and looked down on her. They thought she was simply a time bomb and even filed various complaints with the neighborhood committee, forcing her to move out early. My mother turned a deaf ear to all this, but she rarely went out from then on. Everyone harbored malice and spurned her. Only I knew she did it to protect me. A month before this incident happened, I was molested by my biological father. When I was almost forced by him, my mother came home and accidentally caught him in the act. Then she flew into a rage and rushed up to fight with my father like a crazy lioness, but there was a huge disparity in their physical strength. In the end, that beast beat my mother up and fled in a mess, leaving us, mother and daughter, sitting on the ground and crying in each other's arms. I don't know what decision she made that night. I only knew that the next day, she knocked on Aunt Sue's door and asked Aunt Sue to take care of me for a while. She didn't hide the truth from Aunt Sue and told her what had happened. Aunt Sue was heartbroken and indignant and quickly agreed. Moreover, she called Su Lingzhou and asked him to pick me up and send me to and from school starting that day, and to follow me whenever I went out. But she didn't tell Su Lingzhou the reason for this. She said that only the three of us would know about this matter. No one else, not even her son, was allowed to know. Fortunately, Su Lingzhou listened to his mother very much and didn't ask too many questions during that period. He even stopped participating in the gatherings of the small hoodlum gangs and really followed me honestly to protect me. After a month of peace, I stood in the middle of the crowd, dazed, watching the police come to the door and take my mother away. She was covered in blood at that time, but her expression was relaxed, even a little happy. She didn't lower her head but walked away openly with the police. Her eyes swept around the crowd. Finally, they landed on me. I saw her open her mouth slightly, and her voice gradually overlapped with the day when I fled home and was impatient to listen to her. She said, "No matter what, how could mother harm you?" 15. In the end, I didn't get to see her for the last time, and she didn't leave me a single word either, except for a property ownership certificate and a bank card with the savings she had accumulated for most of her life. These things were quietly and thinly placed on the coffee table in the living room. It was as if she was telling me this was all she could leave me. Take care of myself in the days to come. I seemed to have my soul pulled out, and I was in a daze, not feeling any sadness, but the tears kept flowing, never stopping until I exhausted my strength, leaned against her wheelchair, and fainted. Aunt Sue and Su Lingzhou helped with my mother's funeral arrangements. To be precise, Su Lingzhou took care of everything, because if Aunt Sue hadn't held me back, I'm afraid I would have climbed into my mother's coffin long ago and returned to the earth with her. Warning, warning, there is only one day left for the task. Please complete the task as soon as possible, host, or the task will be declared a failure. I suddenly turned my head. Jingqi was standing not far behind me. He looked at me in silence, and in his hand, he was holding a silver gun. The sky was overcast, and the low, moist wind lifted the hem of his black coat. In his breast pocket, there was a white rose pinned, as if mourning someone. I stared at him blankly from a distance for a long time. I saw his face become paler and paler, his eyes filled with grief and guilt. His lips trembled, and he said softly to me, "I'm sorry." In the end, he still raised his arm and aimed the dark muzzle of the gun at me. Then, with a dull bang, Jingqi fell to the ground, the gun slipping from his hand and rolling into the low grass. Then, the gun was picked up by another long and powerful hand with broad knuckles. Su Lingzhou held the gun in one hand and supported a shovel still stained with fresh soil with the other hand. He said speechlessly, "Are you filming a TV drama? Do you really think there's no one around?" While cursing and complaining, he called the police, with one leg still stepping on the shovel, and Jingqi, who had been knocked unconscious, was at his feet. This scene was somehow a bit funny. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, turned around, and continued to burn paper money into the brazier. A gentle breeze blew. The sparks in the brazier suddenly shot up. forming a brilliant swirl of fire in the air round and round, reluctant to part. Finally, the distant wind blew away, taking the ashes of the burned paper money with it. When this day passed and night and day rotated, I seemed to hear the system announce that Jiangqi's task had failed. The divorce proceedings between him and me went very smoothly because of Su Lingzhou's testimony and the conclusive evidence of the basement. Jiangqi was accused of attempted murder and abuse of his wife. At the same time, his company declared bankruptcy, all his assets under his name were frozen, and the matter of his illegal possession of a firearm was also brought to court. It was as if his protagonist Halo had really disappeared this time. Ning Lan chose to ignore his plea for help instead of helping him. Zhou Su added insult to injury and provided the court with more materials about his economic crimes. Overnight, Jiangqi went from a highly sought-after favorite of heaven to a black-hearted capitalist that everyone wanted to condemn. I watched the court scene and saw Jiangqi's confused expression at first, and then his embarrassed appearance of crying and pleading when he heard the verdict. I suddenly thought that if there was no so-called protagonist Halo, he was just such a despicable person with multiple crimes combined. He was finally sentenced to death by shooting. Before that, he begged hard to see me. I wanted to hear his last words, so I went. When he saw me, his eyes lit up as if he had seen a life-saving straw. At this time, he had a beard, his eyes were dark with circles, and his expression was a bit crazy. He desperately coaxed me. There's still a chance. I still have a chance. Wife, help me. The system is willing to give me another chance. As long as you help me, listen to me. I've cleared many copy worlds. I've been an emperor and a god. As long as you help me, I can take you to any of the worlds I've cleared to enjoy a good life. Don't you love me? Please help me. Okay. I had always been wary of that mysterious system. I asked him cautiously, how do you want me to help you? Jiangqi suddenly leaned closer and said eagerly, my protagonist Halo has disappeared. You go find the new male lead in this world. As long as you can seduce him and bring him in front of me, I have a way to steal his luck. It was really unexpected. After Jiangqi stopped pretending completely, his face could be so thick-skinned. I sneered, got up, and left. Jiangqi climbed onto the window and tried to grab me, but was pressed back by the police. He called me in a desperate voice, wife, Xie you, didn't you say, you would always stay by my side? My footsteps paused, but it was only for a moment, and then I continued walking without looking back. Seeing this, Jiangqi was completely desperate. He slumped back and murmured, it's not fair, this is not fair, system, you lied to me. Didn't you say this was a simple task of winning someone over? Why did it turn out like this? How is it possible that someone in this world would be willing to die for another person? You lied to me. I want to file a complaint. Give me another chance. I want to start over. His desperate voice got farther and farther away from me. It was as if my painful and gloomy previous life was just a very distant dream. When I woke up from the dream, it was bright outside. He would never know. I had really committed suicide for love of him once. He didn't deserve it. 16. By the roadside, I looked at the luxury car in front of me, which was worth 8 figures. I looked at the car, and then at Su Lingzhou, who was hanging a long, muscular, and firm forearm out of the window, wearing black sunglasses and trying to look cool. I asked him in a complicated tone, did you rob a bank, or did you get involved with the underworld? The corner of Su Lingzhou's mouth twitched. He took off his sunglasses and looked at me speechlessly. Was your mouth poisoned? You're so mean. Can't I have earned this myself? He opened the car door, stepped out with a long, superior leg, and then walked up to me and opened the door of the passenger seat in a deliberately gentlemanly manner. I got into the car, suspiciously fastened my seatbelt, and my face was full of disbelief. Su Lingzhou was very helpless. He had to explain to me, don't think that just because I didn't study, I haven't been working hard to do business all these years while being away from home, okay? Doing business. I was taken aback for a moment and blurted out without thinking, weren't you in prison? Screech. Su Lingzhou suddenly turned the steering wheel, and with a beautiful drift, he parked the car steadily by the roadside. He didn't say anything and took a deep breath. Then he turned his head and looked at me expressionlessly. Who told you such nonsense about me? Did you believe it? Well, I avoided his gaze guiltily and tried hard to recall the source of this rumor. In an instant, I suddenly understood everything. Su Lingzhou also more or less guessed it. He was angry and amused, but he couldn't bear to really teach me a lesson, so he poked my forehead with his finger and said in a tone of hating iron for not becoming steel, you actually believed what that old guy said. Don't you remember that he was rejected when he pursued my mother in his early years and then spread malicious rumors about our family everywhere? What were you thinking? I knew I had misunderstood him, and I didn't even dare to raise my head when he pointed it out. Thinking about it now, I couldn't believe it myself what kind of person Aunt Sue was, And Su Lingzhou had protected me when we were young. How could I have been so influenced that I distanced myself from them and even believed such rumors? My thoughts were in chaos when the phone suddenly rang. It was actually Zhou Su calling me. I frowned sharply. What did he want to do by calling me? His handsome face, which had jokingly said that he had fallen in love with someone else and wanted to divorce me, gradually became stiff and ugly. He started the car again, his tone calm and reassuring. Don't worry about it. I've been looking for people to deal with him recently. Now that the G guy is in jail, he won't be able to escape either. With your brother here,